And hello, everyone. And I want to welcome you to the 19th annual virtual holiday party. We've got a number of people coming on in. Want to welcome those of you joining the call live. I see we've got Warwick and we've got Sonia, we've got Rita the Elf, we've got Janine, we've got Danette. We should have even more folks joining us. And I want to say happy holidays and thank you for taking time. This is a 3-hour virtual fest. So Rita, I'm glad you've got your elf hat on. I brought Colin, who is one of our family members at this time of year. He usually sits in the car, brought him out. Sonia, it looks like you brought something, brought some lights with you. Fantastic. So regardless of whether you are here live or you are here virtually, we're going to have people coming and going throughout the day. So my name is Jennifer Britton, and I really can't believe it. This is the 19th year that I have done an end of year holiday party, around group and team coaching issues. So that's the really interesting thing, right? 2004, hosted my first I was calling it a year-end or a year-end group and team programs call. I don't think it was really quite a party at that stage. And in those days, we were on bridge lines, right? So really wanted to use the call as an opportunity to recap what we were starting to see and hear in the coaching space. And as you can imagine, in those days, it really didn't have the visibility groups and teams have today. So on behalf of the organization, on behalf of Potentials Realized, I want to welcome you. I'm Jennifer Britton, CEO. I also have here right now live, we've got Rita the Elf, who is our team lead for connecting workspaces and all things virtual, remote, and hybrid. I've also got Ivana Valet, who is our team lead for group coaching. She is here. We do not yet have our team lead, Kathy Vaughn, who is our team lead for team coaching, but I'm sure she will be here as well. So welcome to all of you. Some of you are alumni. Good to see people like Marty. Hey, Marty. Also Danette. We've got Danette on the line who are like, oh, I won't call you older, but maybe seasoned alumni.
Older.
How many years, Marty, have you been in this ecosystem? You were here and then you moved on and then you came back. When did you first join me in programming?
I think it was like 10 or more years ago. I think it was quite a while.
So whether this is your first time here or you are here regularly, I hope that you'll enjoy this. So a bit of the lay of the land. We're going to do some welcomes and a bit of a, warm up. I'm going to take you through the day and we're going to do some stuff that really, I hope you can actually model in your own work. So we are known for one-stop shop for all things group and team programming. Whether you're coaching, whether you're virtually facilitating, or whether you're leading a team, we're really all about how do you help have those better conversations. Part of what we're known for as well is our experiential approaches. So we want to be modeling those throughout the day. And you're not going to just be listening to me. I'm going to kick us off in a few minutes with a bit of a state of union. So some of you may be Choice subscribers. Choice is an amazing magazine. It's the Journal of Professional Coaching. And their latest edition, which is actually going to be released digitally and physically in the next week or two, is all about team and group coaching in an evolving world. Needless to say, the publisher, Gary Schleifer, had reached out to me. He's like, Jen, what do you think we should call this edition? We're going to do group and team coaching. I said, it's got to be an evolving world. So you'll see my feature article, which is called State of the Union. And I take a look at what's happening right now in the sphere of group and team coaching. And as you can appreciate, so just to date stamp this, today is December 20th, 2022. Just about a week ago, the ICF announced the new advanced certification for team coaches. And that's been a long time in coming. So there's a lot of things on the go. And I want to start there with a bit of a check-in. Some of you are working in groups, some of you are working in teams. And throughout the day, we've also got some polls to take the pulse of what you're doing. So Allison has just come in. I want to say, hey, Allison, good to see you. I love your hat. I brought my hat actually, but it's not quite as cool as some of you. Mine has lights. So I'll put the lights on. I'm getting into. I had this a long time. It's missing some snow, people. But anyways, this is our light.
We need humility to run teams.
We do. And we need to have a bit of fun, right? Like this is the thing, I think at this time of year, regardless of how serious the world is, it is important to inject some fun. And as I look back at, the last 18 years of this business, plus my former world of work, which many of you know was in the realm of humanitarian assistance, whether I was working with communities in the north end of the Amazon around medical, like, basic primary healthcare issues, literacy, environmental issues, or post-disaster management. Like we are human beings and we've got to have fun and we seek this connection. So I hope you will connect with us after I do a bit of a State of the Union. Ivana's going to take the reins and she's going to take us through what is her superpower, which is really all about being present and helping us expand our awareness. So she's going to take us through the what, so what, now what. You might see this as a bit of a video. And of course, there's going to be a demo, because if you have not yet checked the YouTube channel, Effective Group Coach, check that out. Ivana did an amazing demo a few months ago that has been seen by over 100 people now. So thank you, Ivana, for contributing at about 10:35. We'll spend about half an hour with Ivana, more or less, and then I'm going to take us to the superpower quiz. One of my favorite projects this year has been expanding a little bit on that notion of presence and range as a coach. And so we're going to look at what are your superpowers. If you haven't yet taken the superpower quiz, I'm going to get Rita to just put the link in the chat. It takes 2 minutes, but we want to have a discussion in about an hour around what you're great at. Because for those of you that are co-coaching or partnering with organizations, it's so valuable to be able to say, one of the strengths I bring as a coach is X, but we could activate it even more by bringing on another partner who brings Y. Because we know in the realm of coaching many, it's so important that we really continue to expand our range, whether we've been doing this work for a year or 2 decades like I have. We've got to continue to really look at our growth. So we'll spend our 11 o'clock Eastern hour doing that. And then Kathy should be with us. She is our team lead for team coaching. She and I are going to sit down and have a bit of a discussion about the new ACTC. I know many of you are interested in this new advanced certification in team coaching. We're going to talk a little bit about what the requirements are, what we're offering, and we'll see where your interests are. And that will segue us into some myths and principles around teams that Kathy will talk about. I'll sort of bring us to a close to share a little bit about what I talked on in my second TEDx talk. So 2 weeks ago, I did a TEDx talk here in Toronto. It was wonderful to be back physically with people. And that TEDx is all about coaching teams through chaos. That is the title that you will see in the new year. One of the changes, unlike my first TED Talk on virtual remote hybrid checklist, which was literally digital and streamed to Ireland and then uploaded right away, now they're back to like doing professional editing and things like that. So the TEDx will not be live until next year, as they're still working on the entire speaker series. There were 7 of us, I think, that spoke in Toronto that day. But I'm going to pull from that talk and share with you some of the blend. Some of you, like Marty, have been with us for a decade. I think Allison, 2020 I think you were with us in 2020 during the early days of the pandemic. You'd remember the 6 factors from some of our discussions, but it bridges, a lot of what we're doing now in 2022, 2023. So really helping you as a coach think about your superpowers and how you can show up with your clients, but also then thinking about the tremendous diversity of the people we serve, our client base. And so I really see the 6 factors as a bridge between our clients, ourselves, and mastery in this work, in holding the space. And we're going to talk a little bit as we go to wrap up today around some of the evolution of our programming. It's been less than a year. In January, Ivana, Kathy, and Rita joined me. I did a recruitment drive saying it was time to grow this business, and I can't say how happy I've been. We've had, I hope they'll say, a good year. It's been a learning year, and it's allowed us to also grow our programming. And so we're going to talk today about some of those programs that now come after both group coaching essentials, team coaching essentials, advanced practicum, because we now have activate your superpowers. We also have a co-coaching essentials. And finally, we have a coaching diverse teams and groups. So I hope that will be enough. And if you're only here for a little while, We'll be getting this recording up in whole or parts sometime in the next couple of weeks, but we hope that you'll take something away that you can apply. So I think that's enough about me. I want to bring you into the space, and I'm going to take this hat off. I think at this stage, I'll just
we want the hat.
I'll bring. You know what? I'm going to bring Colin in. Colin, don't want him to drop him. We had Cindy at our house for years. Cindy somehow miraculously disappeared until this fall when Colin showed up in my car. And as some of you know, I do a lot of driving between this location on the north end of Toronto up to a place about an hour north of here. So Colin's always with me as I navigate business ownership, caretaking for my parents, being a mom of a great, amazing student in his final year of high school. And so with that, welcome. Again, 19 years of this. We'd love to hear, first of all, where are you calling in from? I don't know. Actually, we do have global borders here. Ivana is here. So let's get you to map on, dot on the map where you are. I'll invite you to just go to annotate, which of course is at the top of your screen. And as you find annotate at the top of your screen, it may be beside your viewing Jennifer Britton screen. Move to the right. And as you click there, then go view options and click as you get into annotate with the stamp function. So we've got mostly North America. We've got Ivana over in Italy. I think Ivana, you win the prize right now, at least in this. Oh, we've got Russia. Oh, that's Rita. That's Rita going into Russia. Okay.
That's Rita forgetting to clear
it. So again, wherever you are in the world, right? It is all good. And what I do know about these calls, even in, our emerging, hopefully post-pandemic world soon, very much, people do log in after the fact. So welcome. Think about how you can be using a map to help people get visually and physically oriented. And one reminder before you look at annotate and go to the next screen, always clear your drawings. So that's where we're calling in from. Let's drive in a little bit to an exercise before I go into speaking again. I always like to set intentions, right? And I think this is a fun piece. So this year, once again, I'm bringing the Reconnecting Workspaces dice set. And I want to give us just a few minutes to get ourselves grounded in this process of thinking about where you're at right now, right? Coaching is about being here now. It is sometimes also about thinking future forward. Where do I want to be? So I've got 5 dice in the Reconnecting Workspaces dice kit. These are actually some of the 90-day markers from our 90-day guide for success. And I'd invite you, I'm going to shake them, roll them, and then we're going to take about 2.5 minutes to actually just get grounded with a quick writing exercise. So someone give me the stop. Tell me when to stop. Wave your hand. Paul. Okay, Allison's done it. And Allison, I am now rolling the dice on this very small table here. Here are our icons. So first one coming up, no surprise, is the speech bubble, the set of speech bubbles. I'm going to give you 30 seconds right now just to do a free write around whatever comes up in your mind around either where you are right now or what you want to create in this next year, this next phase around the speech bubbles. Take 30, 45 seconds right now just to write something down. All right, I'm going to move to the next one, which is, and this always seems to come up, the I, or focus. This represents focus in the 90-day guide. So what gets sparked for you when you think of the word focus or you think of the I? All right. And our third icon, and for those just joining us, we're just doing a free association. This is the iceberg, right? So the iceberg. Some of you know from my writing, the iceberg invites us to think about what's above the waterline in terms of our behavior and results. But when we're working with teams, it invites us to explore things like our assumptions, our perspectives, our belief systems, and even our mindsets. So as you think about the iceberg and all of those words, what is resonant or relevant for you right now about that? And we're moving on to our fourth icon, which is sort of a landscape view. You can take it for what it's worth, but just sketch this out, see what comes to mind. And finally, interestingly, there we go. It's the summit. All right. So I hope you found that interesting, right? All of us are probably using different strategies to welcome people into rooms virtually and physically. Some of you may really bring a strength in more mindfulness practices. Personally, as a writer, I love to give people a space and time to journal, to reflect. And so just think about how you're welcoming people in. And that's going to be a nice segue then to our first part of our day, which is all about taking a look at where we are and what's happening in the world of group and team coaching. Later today, as I shared, we're going to be looking at things like the new advanced certification in team coaching that was just announced by ICF. And it was only a year ago that the new ICF core competencies for team coaching were really released. So as I shared at the start of our holiday party, Choice Magazine is going to be releasing a new journal. It's their number 4, volume 20. So it's our 20th year in publication. And this whole edition is going to be called Team and Group Coaching in an Evolving World. So I was really pleased to be asked to do the feature article, which I called State of the Union, and really wanted to take a look at where we are today. So I called it State of the Union because this is about the third time in a 10-year cycle that I've been writing on where we are with group and team coaching. And so I wanted to just share with you sort of some of the core areas of this article and get you thinking about what is influencing your work and your conversations right now. So as we look at the landscape of group and team coaching, again, 2022 has been characterized by return to office for so many. For some, it's back like 5 days a week. For many, it's all about hybrid work still. Certainly in Canada, It's more than 50% of people are definitely still working in a hybrid if they went remote, right? So there was also the part of the population that also kept working. But I think some of the influences we're seeing now are things like paradigm shifts. And really, in Reconnecting Workspaces, my 2021 book, I go through 21 different myths and principles around leadership and teamwork that have shifted in the last few years. So things like really needing to activate and really empower all our team members. And so much of our team coaching approaches are about really activating everyone. So it's no longer about talking forwards, even what I'm doing right now. It's really about bringing people in this circle environment. So as we go through these, what I want to invite you to do is either through chat or through annotation again, to share with us which of these influences are ones that you're seeing in your world. So you might want to just star it. You may want to actually, highlight it or share something that you're doing. But my guess is your work, your business is probably a little different than it was 3 or 4 years ago. Likewise, the world of your clients is different. So what are you noticing and what conversations are you having with your clients that are helping people move between paradigms? And when I say paradigms, what I really mean are ways of being. It's mindsets. These are big, what many in the coaching world would call transformational shifts. I think it's beyond transformation. It really is paradigm shifting, which means that we adopt and we create sometimes entirely new ways of doing and being and conversing. And so within that can activate a lot, right? It's really about sometimes very fundamental, often very disruptive change. And you'll notice that the sixth influence on this list is about adaptive and emerging models, right? If we look at some of the writing that's coming out right now in this space of coaching, so much more around looking at disruption, and how do we address disruption. My TED talk on looking at embracing the chaos, right? What does it mean to invite people to embrace the chaos? Can we continue to just flow, or do we really need to look at working in different ways? So in the article from Choice, you're going to see some of the different tips and suggestions. I've really put it more as implications. But implications for paradigm shifts is, how do we really activate the entire team? With systems approaches, how do we get the team to look outwards, right? Rather than looking into their own internal system, are we also getting people to look outside, thinking about stakeholders, thinking about systems that they're part of from not an organizational standpoint, but even a family system standpoint? And what that means is there's so much more complexity. So it may impact us in terms of the length of time that we're working within a team. It may impact us in terms of the amount of contracting, right? This year, there was an engagement that never even got off the ground because we're still in a contracting phase. And that's like a first in my entire career as a team coach. It's really taken almost a year to get to readiness. But that is where we have to meet our clients. So be thinking about how you're working with clients in the systems, using systems tools, using systemic approaches. Many of you are very well aware with, systemic team coaching approaches, certainly the writing and work of Peter Hawkins. For us in the hybrid space, systems has been there, but not maybe as entrenched, because people are part of multiple systems, which means that we're always thinking systems, but also thinking about how do people connect. And that takes us to influence 3 of the need for belonging, literally like a yearning to reconnect, a yearning to really rebuild and rearticulate what is happening. So it's no surprise that, culture work is back on the table. Certainly one of the challenges during the pandemic was the weakening of not only relationships within teams, but in that strong team identity. And we know for teams to excel, they need a sense of belonging, they need an identification. And that is work that we can really be doing as team coaches, helping teams identify who they are, what they do. And this will be a thread that I'm going to pull forward to the end of our day together, which is really about looking at the 6 factors and how you might use those in your conversations. Given that it's a published model, you are now able to use it with attribution. And it really links into this need for belonging and also the need for performance, because economically, it's been a challenging year, right? And so how do we help teams run quickly? And they're up against a lot of things. Number one, some of the most historic lowest levels of trust. And you really, this ties into the whole triad of trust, safety, and connection that I've been talking about now for 6 years almost, right? I first really published that triad back in Effective Virtual Conversations 2017. And we were talking about it a lot during the pandemic in terms of how do we build connection? How do we build virtual belonging? But now in a hybrid space where everything is even more magnified, how do we really help people anchor in? And I think a lot of it takes us back to the basics. So in the article for choice, I talk a little bit about how with trust, safety, and connection, many of you are probably familiar with that model by now. It's really important that we take time to strengthen the triad, practically involving amplifying the peer component, right? How are we connecting in peers? As team coaches, it's not about us. We are fading back into the system, but making sure that there are agreements in place so the team can lean in, that we spend time on not only results, but also relationships. And so really also think about how we can focus more. I think the words I'm using more these days is a return to the word around capacity development, right? That is really something in the medium and long term. We're looking at sustainability on a team and organizational level, because what's happening too is number 5, teaming. And many of you have heard me talk about Amy Edmonston's term over the years, right? She first published it back in 2013, around the time that From One to Many was coming out. And some of you know that my executive editor at the time was like, Jen, you've got to read this other book that's come out from another wily author, Amy Edmonston. And her book is on this thing called teaming. I think you'd find it interesting as you write your book. And that was, of course, From One to Many. And so had the chance, Amy and I are in a couple of, shared best practices groups globally. And we had an opportunity earlier this year to be in a breakout room together, which I thought was really, for me, it was so fascinating. But what we are seeing is really what her research points to, this practice and this, a need for strategy around how do we help teams form and reform in rapidly changing environments. In earlier days, it was only in extreme teams, things like paramedics, things like the UN. I always led in an environment where our teams did change. And that means that the way we operate, the way we need to be forming and storming and norming and performing is embedded in the work that we do. So my guess is, as coaches, you're seeing this in some of the teams you're working with, whether it is an internal change, whether it's an external change, whether it's because of a merger or an acquisition, but it has implications for how we structure coaching, how we support people collectively and also individually through the process. And again, it has that little piece or a big piece around systems as well. So with that, I'm going to just share this, but I'd love to bring you in for just a little bit. We're not going to spend much more time here, but I'd just love for you to grab your annotate and just let us know, what are you seeing in your world of conversations? Is it, and I think many of these are not only being seen in the team coaching realm, we're seeing them in groups, we're seeing them in individual conversations. I'd invite you to just take a moment and just highlight for us any or all of these that you're seeing in your world. Certainly in writing the article, this was very much based on the experience I've had this year, and I would say probably in the last 18 months, with both teams and groups. Immense paradigm shifts, immense yearning for belonging. Triad of trust, safety, and connection is coming up. So what about you? What are you seeing? You're seeing, paradigm shifts, belonging, the triad. Allison is back. I'll let her in. Yvonne is also seeing adaptive and emerging models. And if there are any good resources that you'd like to recommend to colleagues, please feel free to put those in chat as well. One hope for me, as I know this call usually becomes a call that you can look back on. So one of the things I'll be posting later is actually a copy of a workbook. So I've pulled together a workbook. If maybe when Ivana takes the reins, I'll just share that in chat. And for those of you that are listening in, we'd like to invite you to head on over to the groupcoachingessentials.ca website. There's a special page that I've set up called Holiday Party 2022. So you can go to groupcoachingessentials.ca/Holiday Party 2022.html. You'll see it actually, just for ease of reference, just scroll right down to the bottom of the left sort of navigation, and you'll see it there. And as you get into that page, you're going to see some free resources. We also have this virtual grab bag that we invite you to just join us, share your email, and you will get a copy of that. But for those that are live, hey, I'm going to put this in chat as long as tech is working. So thank you for sharing some of these influences. What's interesting on this is we have resources around all of these. And again, invite you, if you haven't found your way, to a couple of our, well, definitely our YouTube channel is very popular, Effective Group Coach. You will find a lot around trust, safety, and connection, actually all of these areas in the Reconnecting Workspaces sphere. So Reconnecting Workspaces was, of course, my 2021 book. Some of you have it. It looks like this. And I should probably put myself back on screen. Some of you are also, and this is a bit of a surprise. So in 2023, I'm going to be highlighting this more. Q4, I brought out last year, 90-Day Guide for Success, which literally was written as a onboarding and reboarding guide for virtual, remote, and hybrid professionals. But coaches are loving it. There is something about it that allows coaches to really pick up a copy for their team members or their clients, and they're actually helping their clients go through these 90-day sprints. So literally over the course of a quarter. So with that, I'm going to stop my share. Thank you all for being here. And I'm going to just go back. Ivana, this is almost your time, because I think we've done our quiz. Rita's helped me with the quiz, talked about some of the evolutions that we're seeing. The only one that I haven't mentioned yet in all my intro is probably the new area that is really emerging quickly, which would be coaching supervision. And Kathy and I will talk a little bit more about that later as we get into our joint conversation. So we're open for business. As I said, we're expanding. We now have 10 specific programs for group and team coaches. For those that really want to double down, triple down, quadruple down, you can take all 125 hours. Many of you are coming to us because part of the new ACTC, or the Advanced Certification in Team Coaching, is requiring a 60-hour series of learning and team coaching. And so we've now got courses 1 through 6, which start, of course, with Group Coaching Essentials and Team Coaching Essentials and the Advanced Practicum. Those are called courses 1, 2, and 3. And we've now added on Activate Your Team and Group Coaching Superpower, Coaching Diverse Teams, and Co-Coaching. So with that, here is our certificate pathway for team coaches. For group coaches, we're going to be working on that. Again, there's just going to be a different sequencing in terms of what is probably more useful for you. And we will be issuing certificates every month now. I'm doing a brightly colored sort of schedule like this. So here's our January. As you can appreciate, a lot of our programs are starting back up January 9th. We'll be closed for the holidays as of the end of this week, and then reopening again January 9th with new programs starting in mentor coaching, Group Coaching Essentials, Team Coaching Essentials, and Activate Your Superpowers. So I think that's about it for me right now. We have grown. I've shared a little bit about the growth of hybrid work, and that's influencing many of the themes. So connection and belonging, hybrid, helping people really be flexible and build their resilience and get into flow. You said it yourselves, looking at sort of trust and conversations are still live, asynchronous, virtual, hybrid. And as I shared, we're really wanting to double down on both getting things done, but also building relationships. So I hope you enjoy that, and want to hear from you. You know, what is different in where your work is going right now? How is your work different than it was at the beginning of 2022? I'm just curious, what has shifted for you in this year? And if you're open to it, I'm going to stop my share just to actually see you. What's shifted over the course of the year? Maybe I'll go to the team first. Like Ivana, as you think about your work this year, what has shifted for you as a coach? And we'll get you to unmute. That was the 2021 word, right? Or 2020?
Yeah,
So what about
thank
you,
you.
Ivana?
So hello, everyone, and thank you for allowing my voice in the room about this conversation. So for me, what I've really noticed is along that belonging is really the need for that human connection, coming out of the pandemic, coming out of, what we're all dealing with, both in our own lives and professionally. And so that's something that I've noticed a shift from the start of this year is really that desire to really connect, and even around experiences. So as Jen knows, my passion and my superpower has been validated to be around just connecting, that presence, that pause, that mindfulness. So I think that's really important to bring presence to that in our conversations, whether it be in our professional conversations or in our personal conversations for that matter. So I think that's really been a big shift for me, even in owning this superpower. I think that's been the power of this superpower quiz, is to go, okay, so it's not me, just like, this is who I am, that embodiment of who I am. And I think that's the opportunity with our work, with modeling our work for the community. And as we, that ripple effect, us as coaches, as we take this work out to the world.
And for many of you who are on today's call, it's interesting just to see names and faces. We have some real movers and shakers at all different areas, different types of organizations that you work with, different organizations that you represent as well. So I hope there are some things that you'll be able to take back to the office, right? Thinking about what can you do to enhance belonging? What can you do to really help teams continue to move in an era of ongoing change? So again, we've heard a little bit from Ivana, but anyone else want to share what they've seen as shifts in their world this year? Feel free to, take yourself off mute, maybe just do a hand up. Rita the elf has been beside me all year. Rita, what are some of the things you've noticed from our work, especially in the hybrid, right? Virtual, remote, and hybrid. What have you seen?
I was going to say that, especially in our geography, a lot of people are going back to hybrid. It's policy driven to some extent. There's some resistance to it. Some people just want to stay remote, and some people are just sick and tired of being introverted and want to get out there. So people are shifting employment even to make things work for them. And some people are really reaching out and looking for the skills necessary to make hybrid work for them, if that makes sense. So that's what I've noticed. And I've noticed, even in our own household, we went from fully remote to at least one of us being hybrid. So
It makes
it's a legit thing. It's happening.
It's happening. And again, this is where Reconnecting Workspaces and 90-Day Guide really written for the virtual, remote, and hybrid. So feel free to tap into those as coaches, tap into the videos. We've got Danette. Danette does a lot of work in the restaurant industry, and she's seen a lot of heightened stress due to staffing issues. Absolutely, like automation, right? Even on my way back to the office this morning. So Ivana and I were on early with groups in Europe. And then I ran out to get to the gym to do some running because I could be on all day. And as I was coming back, I stopped, of course, at the dollar store, and everything has gone automated, right? Like the woman there who was like shopping like me, she's like, where is everyone? Like all there are machines now. And then up pops, someone, and she's like, no, we're just stocking. Like, thank goodness the machine is there because we can actually do the rest of our work. So it was a really interesting, different perspectives around, is automation good? Is it not good? But certainly in Canada, the research is showing, the stats are showing this massive shift in our employment base because so many people took retirement or have retired and not returned to the workforce. So who's going to man or person the stores is a bit of an issue at some times, especially right now. So with that, let us transition. And whether you're here for a few minutes or longer, welcome. Just hope that you're getting some good value out of this here. We've talked a little bit about reconnecting workspaces, and in the new month, in the new year, we'll be doing our next Reconnecting Workspaces Certified Coach training. We had a lot of people go through that this year, and it's great. Some of you, just looking around the room, no one here is from that crew. but they are out taking this work into federal governments, into industries ranging from, pharmaceutical, into sort of design work, into education and social services. So with that, we're going to transition. I want to again welcome Ivana Valet, who's our amazing team lead for all things group coaching. And Ivana, I think you've got all you need. I'm going to see if while you're talking, I can upload the workbook for everyone who is on the call. So over to you. And we'll get you to unmute.
Okay, so I just put myself on mute and now I'm taking myself off mute. Jen, before you go, do you mind just stop sharing, just because I want to actually have the space with everyone here for a moment? Whether you're on screen or not, maybe you can use a digital hand. This is the reality of, the virtual world, wanting to honor where you are. But I would just want to kind of put a, whether it be for, let's actually start with you personally. Are you in a time in your day, your week, where you recognize maybe your body's communicating, I just need to pause. I just need to slow down. Maybe you're a mover and a shaker, but you're at a point in the year, the week, the day. If you are in that place, can you just kind of raise your hand and just so, yeah, thank you for the hearts. Yeah, right. Like that could be just where we are as individuals. Okay. And maybe not, and that's okay. Now, I want to ask a second round. As a coach, whether you're a group coach, a team coach, virtual, in person, whatever it is, whether you're a leader in an organization, do you recognize that your team, your groups are traditionally people who actually have a hard time slowing down? And so you recognize adapting to the needs, standing in our core competencies. Part of that is actually recognizing the needs of our participants. So now the question is, can you relate to that from your own participants in your space, whether it be group, team, do a digital hand, a virtual hand, a physical hand, if you are, just so we can get a pulse of, recognizing that there is that in the space. Maybe it's because it's December, maybe it's because it's the end of the year, however it is. Yeah, some of you have that, some of you don't. And so regardless of where you are, regardless of where your participants are, part of the core of group and team coaching, I would assert, is recognizing the needs of our participants. And part of that really is the anchoring of who are we as coaches? What stand do we hold as coaches? What is the space we create? There's a core competency of maintaining presence. And so part of that is really creating the space for silence, pause, and reflection. Part of that is leaning into our curiosity and getting into the world of our participants or our teams. And then on the flip side, there's evoking awareness. And these ones are really are we asking the questions to help people go beyond their current thinking? Are we responding to the needs of our clients? And so Jen, if you can add the page, that would be great. The slide, thank you. And then I think you'll be good to go. Thanks, Janine, for sharing that. Totally get it. Whether you're here fully or you have to drop is all perfect. But ultimately, the essence of this what, so what, now what is really, it is an experiential education, which is involved. What's involved is learning by doing. Okay, that's really at the core of this. So it's three pieces as the diagram shows. It's the experience, the what. It's the reflection, the so what. And then the application. Now that you've had this happen or you've had this year and you've learned this, what do you do with it? And really, this model was created by Professor Gary Rolfe. We're very sensitive to IP at Credential's Realized, both for our own, and so we want to honor other people's IP as well. But he was the founder of this model. And what I think is really great about this model is it really complements group coaching because it aligns beautifully with a tool and resource to anchor in on those coaching focuses that ICF has revealed through that 2009 survey of goal setting and accountability, awareness, and action. because the key piece to whether you're doing groups or teams is you really want, it's great. And I, my superpower, if you haven't gathered, is grounded labyrinth. So I love bringing people to pause, but that's like great. But now what do we do with it? Now that we have these awarenesses, now that we have this discovery, what are we going to do with it to even make a greater impact on our own lives, but also other people's lives? So it really does take this model. What's great about this model is it takes it one step further by inviting the leader, the coach, the person to apply their learning into their life, we'll say. And so what I would like to do, and I hope you're willing and able and inviting you to play along with me, because I think at this time of the year, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do this exercise ourselves. Okay, so I want to just set us up to really know what's going on. Why does she keep talking about this? Because really the reason why I'm doing this is I want you to be able to walk away with this idea, this tool, for you to see how it can apply to yourself. So that's going to be the first layer. And the second layer is also, I want to have some conversation after we do the exercise ourselves and debrief it with breakouts, et cetera, is how can you actually maybe apply this work or this idea in your own work, regardless if it's groups, regardless if it's teams, because Jen and I always talk about, even in our team meetings, like what are the tools? What are the resources? And this is a tool. This is a resource that you can easily adapt and apply in any situation that's coming up in your team or group conversations. So seeing that it is December the 20th, 2022, I thought what we could do is if you can grab a piece of paper and pencil as I lean over to my printer to do the same. And what I'm going to invite us to do is I'm going to be giving us prompts. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go around these 3 circles and I'm going to give you each 2 minutes per circle. And I'm going to prompt you with some ideas to get your thinking around these, because this really is a reflective model that allows you then to take some movement and it makes some momentum and action. Okay. And so what I'm going to invite us to do is with the topic that we're going to actually use, again, being December 20th, is really the topic of what? Reflecting on 2022. This is really a moment of pause, reflection on this year that's coming up to a close, okay? So with the first prompt, I actually want you to think about things like, without judgment or interpretation, I want you to describe the facts or the events of this last year in your life, okay? And I'm going to give you some ideas to get you thinking. So one, like, what did you do? What actions did you take? What did you actually accomplish this year? Like, what are you celebrating of this year? What goals did you meet? Or maybe what goals didn't you meet? What was good or bad about this year? What adventures or travel did you embark on? Let's go bigger than our work. What about your health? Did you run a marathon? Did you start and stick with the routine? Maybe you started menopause. I have no idea what happened this year. Maybe you gained 10 pounds. Whatever it is, without judgment, with just pure neutrality. What about your relationships? Did you lose a loved one that's important to you? Or maybe you became a grandma or a grandpa. What about work? What about professional and money? Maybe you launched your first group coaching program. Maybe you nailed your first team coaching gig. Whatever it is, maybe you hit your 6-figure goal. I'm going to give us a bit more time, okay? And I just want you to jot down everything that's coming to you with pure neutrality, pure facts. What was good or what was quote unquote bad about this year?
Uh,
Okay. So we're going to move to the next circle, which is the reflection or the so what. So with everything that happened and what you just noted, what did you learn? What difference did this year have in your life? What ideas, what analysis did you come away with from this year? What has been reinforced? What difference did this year make for you in your life with your family, health, worth, work, relationships, or even personal growth? How is this year different from what you expected? And finally, what would you maybe continue doing? Or maybe having looked at this last year, what would you maybe consider stop doing? It's going to give us a minute 30. Okay, so there's the minute and a half. And so we're moving to our third circle, which is application or now what. And so here I want you to consider the broader implications of the year and apply the learning. Okay, so what does that mean is I want you to also think about and strike that balance between realistic and reachable goals and also being open to spontaneity and change. Okay, so here I want you to think about things like, how do you want to do things differently in 2023 based on what you learned? What steps can you take to apply your 2022 learnings to 2023? How will you maybe think or act in the future as a result of 2022? And then lastly, what do you need to do in order to make things better? Or maybe to stop being stuck? Or maybe to improve yourself or resolve the situation? So this is really what's next for you. I'm going to give us another minute 30. Okay. Great. So what we're going to do now with Jen's help is we're going to move you into breakout rooms. Okay. And Jen, ideally in pairs of 2, maximum 3. Okay. And let's do the clock for 4 minutes, if you can, please. And these are the questions I want you to I invite you to share with your partner, or if you end up being in a triad, is really like, what's gotten clear from you through this exercise? What's become clear? As well as, or maybe something that, you need to do less of or amplify. And then I also want you to share one thing that you're celebrating. Let's celebrate. This is the end of the year. And I want to invite you to kind of find something in your year that you want to celebrate. And thirdly, and I'll put these in the chat so you have reference to it, is also name one thing you can take a step to make 2023 even better. So I just want to help Jen by saying that Danette mentioned she can't go into a breakout. Okay, thank you. Perfect. So please, if you'll see the chat, just hit join and we'll see you back here in 4 minutes, everyone.
Just note that the timer is not set, so you'll need to just give a little watch view right now. And there are rooms with, some of you have 3 in a room, so we'll see you in 4. Enjoy.
Perfect.
Make sure that you accept. This is not a push out directly, so you'll need to accept the room invite that you should now see on your screen. All right.
Thank you so much,
Enjoy.
Jen.
I can see some have accepted, some have not. So that might mean Marty is coming back. I'm going to put Marty actually. Okay, Marty is gone and Sonia is by herself. So I'm going to move Sonia over because I think Janine can't go either. Okay.
Okay. And
So
maybe
there's at least 2 or 3 in every room.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to stop the share while we do this. I'm going to put a pause on the recording as well, just to save recording. Remind me please to start recording. All right, so we'll have people coming back in about 40 seconds or so. Just from a facilitation standpoint, always good to get this back up before you forget. So for those that are watching and listening asynchronously, we'd love to hear what your insights were from this what, so what, now what, that many of you have experienced in both group and team coaching. Again, the roots of experiential education with David Kolb, and looking very much at, how do we create this reflective space for pause? So let's see. I'm excited, Ivana. How about you? To see what people have talked about in the groups.
Yeah. No, this is great. Can't wait. People are coming back. Yay. The party gets to continue. Yay. All right. Welcome back, everyone. So as we teach, demonstrate in our own programs, part of what we do to really create that experience in full circle is allowing articulation in pairs, but then also allowing voices in the bigger room. So within your rooms, is there anyone who's inspired or wants to share a commonality, or maybe you're actually really inspired to share your own aha with the group? So I just want to invite speakers. I think Rita, you were ready to go. So can I bring you in?
I can chat.
Yeah.
Basically I guess the thing that I walked through was our change in canine, if that makes sense. So in July, my dog, who is up there in that photo, lived a very good life, almost 17 years. She, passed on in July. And then in November, we got a puppy. So it's going from elder dog care to nothing to puppy care in a matter of 3.5, 4 months. So the transition, the change, there are some similarities, but there are a lot of differences. Like one of them allowed me to sleep, the other one not so much. So it was a little bit of a change of the stress and the overwhelm initially. The first couple of weeks was a huge adjustment. And as far as the goals for 23 is to honor the memory of Max and to continue to foster the growth of Gilda. That's the plan.
Yeah, I'm also hearing the appreciation of the individuality, both of cycle of where they are in life, but also their personalities. So that's awesome. Thank you, Rita. Anyone else inspired to share? Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I think both Allison and I felt like the clarity that we got was that there's more to celebrate than at what first appears. So that was fun.
Yeah, and I actually want, like, that is bringing it back to ICF and core competencies. Like, that is facilitating client growth, and that can be done through journal prompting. That could be in reflection. So are we supporting ourselves, let alone our participants, to pause and actually go, wow, I actually didn't realize I've come this far, or I've actually accomplished this. So this is a great tool that you can do in any area, that you can adapt to your own programs, that really allows that. And I did that question prompt very intentionally, bringing in that opportunity for people to go, whoa, pause. Yeah, what am I celebrating? So great stuff. Thank you. How about moving forward in 2023, Paul? Care to share?
I think for me, it was kind of continuing on with those celebrations. Like one is, I really focused on one-on-one relationships versus kind of a one-to-many, social media world that I had focused on previously. And I found it personally satisfying. I could connect with a lot more people than I imagined. So anyway, that's one. But just doing what I love also, like just moving in, pressing into it, rather than planning someday.
Beautiful. So I'm actually now going to pause the conversation and actually pull the curtain back. But before I do that, I want to invite, just like with a raise of hand, digital or not, like, can you see the value of actually using this type of tool in your own groups, in your own teams? If you do, just raise a hand. It doesn't need to be this topic necessarily. Yeah, great. I appreciate that, right? Like, there really is an opportunity. Are we creating those moments of pause? Are we creating those moments of pause and celebration and even reflection to go, wow, you know what? I didn't actually look at it this way. It's an opportunity for many people to slow down when they're traditionally people who are activators. But what I particularly appreciate about this model, and I want to just give true credit to Cole, thanks to Danelle and Jen. I think probably Rolf was an extended experiential educator, but I think the core of this work goes back to Cole. So miscredit, and I just acknowledge that, is the piece of how do we activate, right? It's great that we sit and pause, but then how can we get people moving through their ahas, through their awarenesses? And so what I actually want to take just a couple minutes now is, and I do this, if anyone's taken my programs or taken group coaching with me, I say this in full transparency. I'm like, I like to pull the curtain back and go, okay, as a group coach, I do this because of this. And I've touched on this already, but I do want to touch on a few key points just to re-anchor some learning and some intentionality of why we do what we do as we do it and why we teach it. So ultimately, one of the things that I want to point out is it's great to allow people to have that pause, but whether you had the opportunity to share it with us in the collective room, it's just as important for people to have that moment, that micro moment to articulate it, because oftentimes greater ahas, greater discovery comes through speaking. So there's layers of learning. And so one is writing, but then when we articulate it, we can actually help people bring greater discoveries, greater awarenesses through the conversation. And so that's one piece that I want to share. And another piece that I want to share is there's many different ways of doing it. This exercise is one, but in taking any of our programs, we're very intentional in our design to really create moments of pause and reflection. And I just want to kind of add, Jen, I don't know if you have it handy, but we actually offer a full line of products conversation sparker, journal prompts. And so, you know, some of us get stuck in like, well, how do I even begin to do this? And so I want to know that there's these conversations, but we also have a whole product line, thank you, that we include in our program. So if you're like one of those, like, what are the questions I can ask to get some of these things going? There is a product link, and I'm trying to find it, and maybe I'll look for it. Thanks, Jen. You make a great model as much as a teacher and a writer and a lead coach. You know, it's you've got a backup career. So thank you. So there's that piece. And I also want to just intentionally speak to the design that I actually did. Like, as we talk about design matrix, I created a design matrix intentionally wanting to create that space. So when you're creating, it's more than just doing an exercise. It's how are you designing the space for those conversations to go wider and deeper? Did you notice the questions I asked? They were powerful questions, right? You want to be talking about that. You want to be thinking about, am I allowing the space, that 2-to-1 ratio? If that exercise was like a 6-minute exercise, are we at least creating twice the amount of time for debrief or, you know, conversation around that? So these are some of the things that you want to be thinking about when you're actually doing this type of work, these types of activities in your own programs. And for those who are interested in the grab bags, there is a checklist that I've created where you can actually go and get some tips on how you can create more intentional presence and pause in your group and team coaching programs. So Jen, without further ado, I really appreciate the space and the opportunity to share some of, you know, our teachings and our best practices with this group. So thank you everyone for playing and participating.
Well, thank you, Ivana. And again, Ivana's our team lead for group and team coaching. So what I love is hearing my voice come out of Ivana's mouth and what we've been writing about, what I've been writing about. I think, you know, really as an organization, we're continuing to grow because it's not just, you know, I've always been the mouthpiece of this writing, of this research, but bringing other voices, I think, helps to anchor the conversation. So thank you very much, Ivana, for taking us through what many of you have seen in the background of all our programming here at Potentials Realized, the what, so what, now what. As an experiential for 30 years now, like this is what changes conversation. This is what transforms. And I want to spotlight two things that Ivana said. One, the need for articulation, right? It's not just about the pause. We've also got to make sure that we're leaving space for dialogue. And that is so important at this time. So if you're looking for tools, cool things, again, a lot of the physical resources, so even the journaling Sparker cards went digital. So Rita put a link in there to conversationsparker.com for physical cards. There's also digital downloads that you can use. And with our digital licensing, you can take them into your presentation. So just an invitation to think about what might you add at a low cost, right? This is also part not only of offering what you want, but from a business model, which is what I know a lot of you are really interested in, is how do you create multiple streams of revenue, right? I always think of Andrea Lee's work in multiple streams. And I think in economic times like this, it's really valuable to think about what are all the things that you're offering in service to your clients. So with that, we're going to leave the landscape of experiential ed, which is at the heart of all we do, because what I've done for 30 years. And now we're going to shift gears into team and group coaching superpowers. So this may be where you're picking up. Again, welcome to our 19th annual group and team coaching programs call. I'm Jennifer Britton. And if you're just joining us, we're about an hour and a half into our 19th annual party. As a one-stop shop for all things group and team coaching, we really work with people like you as coaches to help you get your best results, whether it's digital products, physical products, ICF-CCE approved programming, or insights about yourself. We always want to be thinking and helping you think about who you are as a coach and how you can show up even more powerfully. And that was really the context of this piece, this idea or series of ideas that's been percolating for me for many, many years, right? I first launched Group Coaching Essentials, and I've run it for months, other than this year, right? Ivana now runs it every month, 2 or 3 times a month. But for the last 17 years, pretty much, like it has been about taking coaches like yourself through the program. And one big piece of what we do in effect, creating coaching mastery is, of course, looking at our clients. Our clients shape everything, our conversation, the flow. And there's also a really important piece that we often don't talk about, and that is us. Who are we as group and team coaches? And as we expand the conversation, the coaching conversation from one-on-one to group and then team, really being able to expand our range becomes critical. Because as we coach 2 or 3 or 15 people that are either unrelated, like in a group context, or related, like in a team context, it's really critical that we become more effective in understanding, how do we show up? What are our strengths? But as we know, strengths also create a shadow side. Strengths overused become a blind spot. And for those that have been with me over the years in group coaching essentials or team coaching essentials, you know how I like to share this notion of like strengths overused equals blind spot. It's good that we do well in what we do. And when we're working with many coaching clients, we need to really intentionally be expanding our range all the time. So we can expand that range in a couple of ways, right? We can grow. And certainly as someone, this year was my 20th year coaching, 18th year here in this business. But before that, I was coaching for a couple of years when I was still a leader with the United Nations, right? This is why I am still so passionate about team coaching, because to affect change in complex situations, it's not just about activating the leader. It has to be his or her team. And as a team lead and as a team coach, even as a coach in general, I know that I need to keep working on myself, right? I can only go as far as my growth as a leader in any system. And so this has really emerged 20 years later into what you now see as a group and team coaching superpower. So I hope that you took 2 minutes or have taken 2 minutes. You can find it at bit.ly/GT coaching superpower. Again, that's bit.ly/GT coaching superpower. And as you go through this 15-question quiz, you're going to get a quick response as to, based on what you've replied today, you might be one of 5 different types of coaches. So in recent years in my writing and podcast, you might have met the Digital Dozen. Well, the Digital Dozen were joined last year by this new cohort of coaches. This is a group of coaches, and they really do sort of demonstrate or embody many of our own styles. So just to sort of bridge the digital with the physical and the real, the fictional and the real, we're going to use ourselves as a team. So we don't have Kathy Vaughn, our team lead for team coaching, with us yet, but I've got Colin here, of course, from our family, little elf Colin. Rita is here as well. But I'll just want to get you thinking about, what does it take to really hold the space and activate insights, growth, learning, action, awareness, as you've heard, as well as boosting teams and groups results and relationships. Now that's a mouthful, and I share that mouthful because most of you on the call have been coaching for a while. So these are not new words, right? These are our core coaching competencies. And as we think about our core coaching competencies and those that we coach, how are we looking at activating within the team and group systems? So I want to take us through these different personas, these different types of coaches. You might see yourself in a couple of lenses, because like anything, we're not just one kind, right? Like mastery equals multiplicity in my world. This is actually why I left psychology 3 decades ago to not practice as a clinical psychologist, which I was on the pathway to become. And, I like to think as team and group coaches, we need a little bit of all of these in our work, in our being. But to illustrate it, our team actually brings a couple of different strengths. So I'm going to start with Ivana. If you've been with us at the party, we just spent the last half an hour with Ivana on looking at the experiential process of the what, so what, now what, but also looking at presence and awareness. So Ivana, share with us your natural sort of come from style as a coach is what? Who do you resonate with?
So I resonate with the grounded labyrinth. And what's interesting is my own growth and transformation as a person and as a coach, I wouldn't say I started there. And so that's really what's interesting to me is that. And so even the people that I attract in my own practice often are movers and shakers and actually need a place to come and just be. They're overthinkers, they're overanalyzers. And so I really create the container to allow them a place to explore and pause. And so that's really what's kind of cool. And to me, I think it's been part of my journey, but also, again, aligning with this superpower is, I love the mantra that you created in the report, because it really relates to me very powerfully, is the slow down in order to speed up. Even the exercise that I chose today, even the topic of today, I think embodies who I am, but also embodies a core piece of who we are and the place we need to be as coaches. Is, at this time of year, are we slowing down to actually pause and reflect on where we are in our lives, in our businesses, with our families, so we can actually come through 2023 with bigger visions, bigger goals to actually move forward. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but that's what I wanted to share.
I think it's fantastic, because you can all sort of read more about the 5 different types of coaching superpowers. There are videos on this. There's now a whole new course, a 14 CCE course called Activate Your Group and Team Coaching Superpower. Because as Ivana said, she really embodies this now, but did not start there. I think that's a really really interesting comment and statement, because we do need to be fluid as coaches, right? There may always be sort of that natural come from or go to as a coach. And I'm giving Rita in just a minute, because Rita's style is different. And if you listen in, here's what we know about teams. Teams are not, or teams are strengthened. Let me reframe it as teams are strong due to their diversity. Now, you might think, well, shouldn't we all be the same? No, actually, we create a lot of blind spots if everyone on the team is similar. And so while it was not intentional, as I created the Potentials Realized team earlier this year, we're all very different, and that's been complementary. And it also takes more effort to work across differences and to find ways to, really create and co-create that team context. So we not only work as team coaches, we've been modeling this year. And I think one reason we wanted to share the superpowers is because it's something that we can all benefit from, whether you are a coach practitioner yourself, solopreneur, thinking about where your business is going and who you want to partner with, or whether you are working with teams and thinking about it through the lens of the teams that you're working with. I think there's also a third layer that I just want to plant the seed around that we're going to be doing a lot more in 2023, which is co-coaching, right? For those that are working towards their advanced credential, co-coaching is a big part and parcel of that journey. So next I'm going to bring in Rita. Rita, I love your hat today. And think about how we're showing up as well, right? It might give us some interesting tips, or maybe just a little flag that, hey, Rita, who do you see yourself aligned with in terms of the team and group coaching superpowers?
Okay, so my superpower is see fire. So we are the firecrackers. We are the folks that are very results driven, goal oriented. Let's get her done. So as far as the conversations I'm typically used to having, it's very much goal setting, accountability checks. Where are we moving from here? Usually faster pace, less about the pause. From a co-coaching standpoint, I could definitely see Ivana and I collaborating on something where, in the future, we could take a piece of each where it's appropriate based on our strengths. But yeah, I'm just going to put my result in the chat. And if anyone's kind of listening and has done the quiz, then they can throw theirs in as well. And if you really need the link, it's up at the top. It's a redirect link, but it'll get you there. So just go right to the top of the chat and then you can do the quiz. But I would like to clarify though that as a typical trainer though, I tend to be more like the tool master, where, I'm gathering different resources. And I feel like as I evolve in my coaching journey, I'll probably tap into that as well as sort of the planning labyrinth, looking at it from a distance, long range, right? Oh, sorry, the lighthouse. I'm looking at the lighthouse. I'm saying labyrinth, but basically the idea that, you can look at things from a long range and sort of plan and set goals on that. So those kind of cross as well. So, but that's where my result initially landed, and I'm interested to see where the journey takes me, right? Because we evolve, right? Yeah, we are evolving creatures in an evolving world.
You got it. And that's really the heart of reconnecting workspaces. So share with us, and Rita, I'm gonna let you be my eyes. Share with us what your type is. Rita made reference to the catalytic tool master, and that is my style, right? So very much it's about like, how do we catalyze? How do we help people find those bridges, but also do it in a way that really creates more, right? Catalytic energy is transformational, and it's not alone. Also the tool master, right? Like I love having lots of things in my back pockets, and in these many, many journeys that I've had over the years, have learned so many different things that I can bring together to be of service to the clients that I work with. So what I appreciate, when I'm working with people who are similar, but usually different than me, the one thing that often gravitates them to me is like this tool master piece. Like, hey, I want to learn, I want to explore, I want to expand what is available. And in the work of group and team coaches, I think that is really critical. So be noticing. And if any of you are catalytic tool masters, let us know. I'm going to use our ecosystem connector, which is really Colin the elf today. As you can imagine, the ecosystem is embracing. They're all about embracing the world we operate within, and certainly the continued evolution of the workspace, in person, hybrid, back and remote. Like every day is a little bit different, and so our systems are changing. How do we ensure we have people on the team that are very systems aware, ecosystem aware? And if you recall, Plan, Do, Track and Coaching Business Builder, published back in 2018, 2019, flip back to section 4, which really goes into some coaching exercises around activating that ecosystem, helping you as a business owner, but also helping your clients think about the ecosystem in which they operate. What's been interesting for me is, I didn't realize how systemically related my work was, because I've never considered it systems, because it's how I was trained 3 decades ago as an environmentalist, right? Naturally, makes sense, but I just never sort of owned that. But really systems, whether it's systemic team approaches, whether it's systemic coaching, whether it's helping our clients become more aware of the context, as I've been calling it for many years, or the system in which they operate, how are we helping people connect across those bridges? And if you were here at last year's party, 2021, I shared a lot around the 6 layers of connection. So how are you really looking at, activating your groups, your teams, with each other, with you, with technology, with the themes and contents they're looking at? And what is interesting is about 24% of the people who are taking the Superpower quiz, and I now have like quite a bit of data. It's over 1,000 people now, which is interesting, right? So ecosystem connector, there's quite a few of you out there. No surprise, a lot of coaches are also the spiral lighthouse, right? So the spiral lighthouse coach is really that coach that creates that grounded space of trust, safety, and connection, just like a lighthouse. They are the beacon often in a very disruptive world. And why I called it a spiral lighthouse, because there are also many of you, and some of you might be on today's call or listening in, the spiral element of the coach invites us to really be noticing progress on that spiral nature. Imagine stepping into a lighthouse or a turret. I don't think there are many turrets around in the world, but as we go up those spiral staircases, we can look at a point on the wall. And as we move, that point remains fixed, but our perspective, our vantage point, what we see, what we notice changes. And so there's real value in activating that skill set, activating that come from in ourselves, whether we feel that we're a spiral lighthouse coach or not. The whole realm of perspectives work in our work as coaches is absolutely critical. So again, as we said at the start of this component, superpower is really about helping you understand your layers more. Ivana used that term. It's part of the terminology we use. It's what I write on. It is really critical that we continue to sort of go below that metaphorical waterline into our belief systems, into our philosophies, into our value sets. And there is really an interesting, I think, as we get more and more data around, where and who is doing what. This is part of the work and writing that I'll be releasing in 2023, which is going to have a team and possibly group coaching focus. It will definitely have a team coaching focus, may have some group elements as well, but in celebration to the 10th anniversary of From One to Many, I really felt that it was time for a new book. So much has shifted in this space as well. So with that, really want to invite you. And do we have anyone commenting? Rita? I usually use Rita. I've got Allison.
Yeah, we've got one person, Sonia, who's a lighthouse as well.
Is a lighthouse. Okay, and Allison, let's get you to unmute. Go ahead. What did you want to say?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say thank you so much, Jennifer, for throwing this holiday party. Everything you do is so solid and such integrity, and it's just a real gift to the community. What I want to say, I am also a spiral lighthouse, and I get so darn frustrated. Like, my trigger is when organizations, leaders don't want to go into the depth of what you just said, right? Let's go under and let's do this. It's my trigger point. I'm good and skillful at getting them to look more deeply. But when they don't appreciate the differences of perspectives that they have, and they sort of cut off different voices that are needed to be here, I find that that's my trigger. And when Ivana said earlier, like, what are we doing to meet the needs of the clients? They don't know often what they exactly need sometimes. And so what I have found has shifted now through COVID is their willingness to be more honest, even if they don't want to be, whereas before they could just placate. Now that the leaders are more willing to say, okay, let's really do the work.
And again, as a spiral lighthouse, love that, because you can be with them, right? Like, really walking that journey at a speed that is with our clients. And that's a really critical part in the evolving workspace. So Allison, I'm so glad too that you have been with us. I think you were here 2020 last year and this year. So you've seen
19
of these parties as well. It was for like 2020 that we moved to this longer format, which I think, whether you're here for the whole time or part-time, it just gives another layer, another insight that you could be taking forward with your work as a coach. Fantastic. Well, I know Christina's joined us. Christina, good to have you here from New York.
Yes, hi. Thank you for inviting me. And apologies, I have two computers open because I was supposed to be off, but I'm not. So I just chip in and chip out.
Anything you want, you've taken the Superpower quiz, anything you want to note, right? And Christina's one of our Reconnecting Workspaces certified coaches. So what's interesting from your perspective around Superpowers, or even what you're seeing is needed in the workspace right now, because you're in the workspace.
Yeah. So I think that let me switch off here because otherwise I'm distracted. So I think that despite the fact that it talks very much to me as a seafarer, it was really, I see all the things that was fit in my personality. But what I think is mostly needed is a balance among the different personalities, because how much important is the vision before getting into the action. And I'm a person that kind of, doer. But I think that it's very, very important that we need to take into consideration the balance among the different personalities to address. And as you were saying, Alison, sometimes we don't know the needs. So in order to understand the needs, we need to listen first. So I think that this is what it triggers to my understanding on all this game. And I like the thing that was saying about the data. So how the data will help us to analyze the things and how we can critically thinking and make the foundation of the new work. Because I think that, as you were mentioning about the parties that are changing, because the environment or the ecosystem is changing, how the data are helping us to draw some different level of understanding the needs. I mean, I think that these couple of years they were kind of very fast in moving the change management, and was not expected as such. So that is my takeaway.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for pushing through with your throat there. You know, my invite, my even almost request of each one of you who's attended or maybe watching is to tell your colleagues, right? Like, this is a data set that I really want to be getting more coaches' voices involved, because the data shows that there are, thousands, tens of thousands of coaches out there. There are also tens of thousands of coaches saying they're team coaches. So what really is needed? Who are we? What do we look like and sound like? And what do our clients want? And we can't necessarily do that with a data set of just a couple hundred people. So my goal in this next year is to actually get 25,000 coaches taking the quiz, to really get a data set of like, who are team coaches? What is important and what is going to help move the needle. So for those that are with us live or virtual, definitely head on over bit.ly/GT Coaching Superpower. And as I said, we've got a new ICF-CCE approved program. For some of you, this is a really interesting next layer of your evolution, right? Like, who are you? How do you activate all that is available to you through yourself, through your partnerships, in service to the work that you do? So that new Activate program is going to be launching again on January 13th. I'll be leading it for the first few iterations. I launched it this fall, and it's a fun one. It's really a fun one. We also get to look at coaching for innovation, coaching for change, coaching for creativity. So some of those more advanced areas that I think many of you who are live with us today are at that stage of your development as coaches, right? There's always a next edge for us. So what is that next edge? And I think that's very much aligned with today's conversation around the advanced credential. So questions, curiosities, other statements around the superpowers before we transition into our next part. The only other thing I would say is book a call. I'm doing superpower calls, and you will see in the notebook, which sadly Zoom is not letting me share the file. So you can head on over to groupcoachingessentials.ca / what did I say it is? Holiday Party 2022.html. So groupcoachingessentials.ca / holiday party 2022, like number 2022.html. You will see the link. And Ivana, you look like you're leaning in there. Did I get the right one?
Yep, but I'm also going to add it to the chat. So Rita's put it in one.
I already did that.
Yeah.
So if people were like coming and going, you wouldn't see it. But this is I have on the right-hand side a little orange button that says download the swag bag. I'm going to take that off like after, but if you're here live, like download. It's a 19-page notebook, right, for what we're talking about here in our work. So follow along or see it later. Again, it's just our gift to you, because we know that the evolving workspace is calling all of us forward. So yeah, any questions, comments on superpowers? I'm glad to hear people like it. I like it too. You saw Rita, she liked the Activate course, and it's very colorful, right? Like, this is colorful work. And so what's interesting is this is the bridge. This is actually the bridge to the 6 factors and the TEDx call, a conversation presentation I did a few weeks ago on looking at team effectiveness and work styles. So Kathy, our team lead, isn't with us today right now. I'm guessing there may be something going on. She is calling in from Africa. Some days this is what happens, right? When you work in a global team, sometimes things happen half a world away, which might mean Kathy might be with us or not. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bridge forward. Maybe it's time for a bit of an exercise. So let me just give us something fun to do, and then we'll come back and talk about some of these other areas. So we've done some sketches, we've done some drawing. One of my favorites, and if you've been with us before, this is an oldie but a goodie. I would like to invite you right now to just grab your annotation once again, and we're going to do a word search because I love word searches, right? And so just to activate our brain, let's activate our brain. I'd like you to find some of these words that you will see listed on the right-hand side out of Reconnecting Workspaces, which some of you have picked up a copy of the book. Again, I think it's a great resource for just one-on-one, group, and team conversations. But these are some of the many chapters that are covered. More productive meetings, productivity, project management, working with strengths, relationship management, mentoring and coaching in the virtual, remote, and hybrid space, onboarding, working with the tapestry of teams, developing team practices. So we'll invite you, just as a little segue, to find some words, gets us going. Marty has found strengths. Christina has found strengths. We've also got onboarding. What other words are you seeing in this?
And while people are doing that, Allison's asking for the book reference that you just mentioned, which was which one?
So all of this comes from Reconnecting Workspaces, which is 2021. Again, this is going to be, there will be a bridge that team coaches will find with the 2023 book. But second in the series, I also mentioned this morning, the 90-day guide. So the 90-day guide, this is the one that I referenced earlier in the call. It was actually written as a 90-day sprint. So it's divided into weeks, it's divided into days, and every day has a different focus. And like Ivana has taken us through with Kolb's model, it starts with the what, so what, and then now what, which is quite interesting. I don't know if Ivana actually knows that. But for instance, day 28, matrix teams are the focus. So what is a matrix team? The so what are some of the challenges? What are some of the to-dos when you're working in a matrix management environment? And then, of course, there's the now what? How do you make matrix management work? So it is, if you can see this, right? It's also part content, but then part reflective journal. And what coaches are finding with the 90-day guide is that it's a great resource to really be offering to one-on-one clients and also groups. So many coaches who are leaders are using this as a resource. And whether it's a new employee or a seasoned one, they're either giving it at the start of their work, or they're saying to their entire team, hey, it's Q1. We're going to all be working through this, and everyone's got a copy. So it's a really cool thing, right? For like $30, just getting a copy for everyone, and they're working through it as a team, or sometimes supervisor and their direct reports, or even in peer groups as well. We have some reading clubs, some book clubs that have been using it as well. So a little bit to toot my own horn, it is a great resource, especially for those organizations that are remaining hybrid. So Ivana, I'm seeing you lean in. What are you intrigued by?
Well, I'm trying to find words in the puzzle, but my eyesight is saying get to the eye doctor.
So again, this was more of a let's look for words. Yes, depending on your eyes. There we go. Sonia's finding words like next. Fantastic. So I'm going to give you just another minute or two. In our remaining time, we're going to be covering a couple of things. So we're going to look at the 6 factors, which is an interesting piece. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about the new team coaching accreditation. I could not let that pass us by. Kathy had planned on doing some myths and principles around teams, and we may just do a different call. I want to say hi to Courtney. We're just sequencing out of an activity, which is our word search. I'm going to just take us forward. This is our last call, last 15 seconds to find some words that resonate for you. hope that that was a good little stretch. And I will actually invite you, if you have been sitting this entire time, take your video off, just do a bit of a stretch. That is actually Colin, who usually sits on the driving mirror. You know, he's a reminder of me to get out and get my legs going. So word search done, and we're going to be moving now. Last year, we actually did a draw your future. So I didn't plan on doing that today, but we had some really good questions from Ivana in terms of thinking about where you are now and where you want to be. I think at this time of year, it's a really critical time to create that pause and think about it. And last year, if you'd like to go back to the 2021 year-end holiday party, I took the group through a draw your future process. So right here on the wall, we actually drew it out as we went. Just want to indicate that's something I'm continuing to do virtually and sometimes even physically. I did have an engagement this past summer, which was back in person. It was a small group, but it was really fun to like get out pens and things to really take a small group through that. So creating our future, right? Just want to, before I transition out of this, is so important. We talk at Group Coaching Essentials and Team Coaching Essentials about how important those visual elements are. In the digital space, absolutely. And now that we're many times back to physical spaces, how are you using things that are standing out, right? Like stand out virtually was a lot of what I did during 2020, 2021. It was the brand of how do we create memorability? And I'm inviting you as a coach to think about how are you creating memorability in the physical space? If you're back in the office, are you activating some of these catalytic toolmaster tools, drawings, visual cards, dice set, right? One of the reasons why I wanted to create a dice set during the pandemic was like people want to touch stuff again. And so how do we get them to do that? When we really focus, create that focus, right? Our reticular activating system takes over in our brain. It starts to then sort of sift through all the visual stimuli that we're getting to help us focus in on what's important. And it's interesting in the start of our day today, right? That's where focus, one of our first dice was all about focus in our time. That's what the focus looks like. So think through what's going to amplify things for you. One of the other quizzes that you might have heard me talk about last year is the hybrid work styles quiz. So we've spent a little bit of time talking about how superpowers are important to us, but the teams that we work with also bring different styles and strengths. And this can really create some complexity, not only for the team, but also for the coach. And so if you're interested in learning more, the 2021 quiz, which you can take at bit.ly/hybrid work quiz, layers on a different perspective. So we've talked about being a spiral lighthouse. We've talked about being a grounded labyrinth. We've talked about being a catalytic firecracker. But I'd like you to think now about teams that you've been a part of. And my guess is on that team, there have been, as Rita said, the builders, the people who want to get stuff done. They want to check things off. And that builder energy is great, but it sometimes can get in conflict with the culture wizard, the person on the team who is all about, let's create a sense of identity. Let's slow it down and have a conversation about how we want to operate and what our norms are and what our goals are. And that sort of conversation is then fed into by the visionary. The visionary is like, yeah, let's set a horizon for ourselves with this project. So the builder's voice is very different than a culture wizard's voice. That is very different than the visionary. And amongst that too, in teams today, we typically will have an innovative experimenter, someone who may be causing disruption, right? And in former paradigms, we might have called that person the devil's advocate. But is the devil's advocate in a world of change actually an innovative experimenter? Someone who is like, not just even leading the pack, but is like way far down the road, experimenting and innovating and trying things out, failing and probably failing very fast. so that they can learn and iterate and share that learning with others on the team. If you're working with startups, if you're working with big companies as well, you may be interfacing with the intrapreneurs, right? One of the paradigm shifts we've been seeing is that what started in the 1990s with big organizations like 3M and Xerox, this notion of building parts of the business as intrapreneurial, not entrepreneurial, but intrapreneurial. And if you look up the term, if you look up the history of intrapreneurism, there's a lot going on actually in the 1990s. As I started teaching business studies in 2004 and being a business faculty member, my dean said, Jen, you're starting a business, you're an entrepreneur. Could you come and talk about intrapreneurism? So for several months of my life, I was teaching this intrapreneurism course that people in business were like, you can innovate, you can actually experiment. What's fascinating, if we future forward to 2022, what organization hasn't had to become more intrapreneurial? And we've got people on the call, I'm not going to point names, but some of you know who you are. In organizations, you're the ones that are now the innovative experimenters, creating new systems, processes that are more agile and fluid and sped up. And so in some organizations, and today we've had people here with us that have been in public sector, we've had people from different organizations ranging from tech to healthcare to education from those that are attending. And I think many of you are either working, like cultivating the innovative experimenters on the team, or also looking at how do we bring in more connectors? Because in former paradigms, getting things done was enough. In a world that is ever changing, we need the activation of the connector, the person who's going to find the bridges, the person who's going to be the liaison in a team, along with that innovative experimenter. So again, totally different focus. Again, we're now in this framework focusing on the teams that we work with. And this is where the Coaching Diverse Teams course comes into play that we've launched actually in Q1, first 3 months of this year. It was originally called Coaching the Hybrid Work Styles, but as more and more organizations started doing this, it wasn't just about hybrid work styles, it's just coaching work styles and differences on teams. So for those of you looking at doing your, adding to your toolkit, this might be something that you're interested in, especially if you're seeing teams struggle with diversity across their own base. I've brought this to many organizations this year, including public sector, and actually now it's 18 months that I've been doing the work with like live teams, public sector, environmental management services, financial services. And what's been interesting is in some industries, you're starting to also see some key sort of weighting, like, oh, if you're working with, say, HR, are they connectors? Are they builders? Where are they in the realm? If you're working with environmental managers on hydrology, which is some work that I've been doing this year, they are builders, but they are also innovative experimenters. And as team leaders, they're also culture wizards. So this has implications for the tools that we choose as team coaches, which is why it's a different frame. Now, some of you have been with us in Team Coaching Essentials, so you're like all about how do I help this team get better results, better relationships. Better relationships come through the doorway of the hybrid work quiz. It also comes through the doorway of results. So I want to just forward here, taking you now to my TED Talk, which is still not yet online, but it should be out early 2023. And in my latest TED Talk, which is called Coaching Teams Through Chaos, I share more about this framework. But I share it through the lens of what do teams need to excel in a world that is ever changing. And as you can appreciate from the day I cut my teeth as a young business leader, as a young leader of teams, at the young age, first team I led was actually, I was 17 years old. I was leading a waterfront team in Algonquin Park. And like almost everyone on the team was way older than me. And I was like, why was I hired as the assistant head of the waterfront? And I actually asked the head of the staff, I was like, why did you put me in this role? I'm just really curious. And she's like, Jen, you are a natural leader. And I'm like, yes, and I'm the youngest leader. I don't really quite get this. But everything I learned about teams really came in many ways through those years leading teams in aquatics, because again, to teaming, team composition was always changing, whether we were instructors or lifeguards. And what needed to happen? You needed to have results, right? Like a poor result equal to death, literally. I don't mean to be very blank, but that's what happens in aquatics. Either you've got your blank together or you will lead to a fatality. And what I teach now in the 6 factors really comes from those days, as well as, of course, is grounded in all that we know around team effectiveness. So coaching teams through chaos, I share a little bit about the 6 factors that some of you have met in Team Coaching Essentials. This is a model I first published in 2017 in Effective Virtual Conversations. And so you might be like, oh yeah, I've seen this, but it looked different. So this is the latest iteration. And notice the colors, because there's a couple of layers on this framework that we have touched on today. So in the short time that we have available, I just want to sort of take us through the first layer, which is in any environment, whether it's easy, complex, in-person, virtual, remote, hybrid, teams need 6 core elements in order to thrive. They need to know why they exist. Who are we? What do we do? Why do we exist? And that means we need to really come back to the basics of what's our mission, what's our vision. The person on the team who's going to be best placed to do that, of course, is the visionary, right? And think about your career. Maybe you worked with a visionary. In fact, one of my first, beyond aquatics, one of my first office roles was the summer after I graduated from McGill. And I was at this crossroads in my life. Did I go into clinical psychology, which in those days I had spent a year working as a student, in an academic / what we would call today co-op setting, I guess, working in the Montreal Neurological Hospital. I spent a year working with autistic boys between the ages of 6 and 12 in what was in those days a heavily focused behavioral modification. And I was like, wow, when I got the word that this was going to be my placement for a year, I was like, how will I survive? In those days, the protocol for a child that misbehaved was to call an orderly and have them put in a straitjacket. And as a young woman, even today, I think, oh my goodness. So I did everything in my power in that year of saying, when I'm on site, I'm wondering if we can look at life skills. I'm wondering if we can try experiential rehabilitation therapy. Is that a possibility in the lens of my role as a psychology student? And I was very lucky. I was part of a team that was a psychoeducational team. And so as a young student, like I didn't know anything and everyone let me know that I didn't know anything, but they did say, you know what, we need to find something for these boys. We do need to really help them learn life skills. So yes, Jen, when you come to the site, you can spend half a day in this little house. They had a little house on site. And we would do things like, how do you make toast? How do you change a bed? How do you sweep the floor? Like life skills that in the hospital, these boys weren't learning anything. They were just, again, going to timeouts in a straitjacket. And so it was always interesting because my supervisor would say to me, so interesting. Every day after you come, Jennifer, the next morning, the boys are really thinking differently and talking differently and in their own way. Talking, of course, with autism is not a big vehicle, but I do attribute it. A lot of it really was that recreational therapy. And so we did pool because I was a lifeguard, because I was a swim person. I got to also take them into the pool. And that was where all fun broke loose. But why I share this, right, is why do we exist? What are we here for, right? Being part of that team, it was to really help these young boys, age 6 to 12, 30 years ago, look at what was possible in an environment where in those days, it really was about institutionalization, not about how do we socially support people in full living. So coaching teams through chaos, it was interesting. My springboard into teams was from that experience. And it's been something that I've always thought about. And whether I've been leading teams across the Americas, Caribbean, our team, which is global, it's really all about shared mission and vision. How do we really look at who we are? So as you get into your conversations, think about the why and think about how you're helping people set the why. My first boss in not the psychoeducational setting, but my first boss in an office was a visionary. And what I learned from his leadership was he was able to lead the organization to an amazing place. And then the skills of a visionary needed to recede. We actually needed then someone who could be the builder, who could help that organization move just from the vision and let's have this amazing organization into something that gets results. And so that's where the what becomes an important piece in the component. So how do we really look at creating our goal framework? This is often seen as the world of the facilitator, the strategic planner. The coach is also going to want to focus on results as well. And that goes hand in hand with the work of the culture wizard, right? What are our norms? How do we do things? How do we operate? And a world of a team coach will always be about this space of the norms. So to get you activated, I want to invite you. Bye, Christina. Happy holidays. Thank you for dropping in.
Apologies, there was a kind of emergency, so I need to switch to the other computer.
Need to go. Well, run on, says Colin.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.
Happy
And very
holidays.
interesting as usual. So see you next program. Ciao.
We'll see you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So I'd love to hear from you. We've got some of you on the line. Does anyone see themselves as the visionary, the builder, or the culture wizard on teams? Put up your hand. I know many of you are having to segue off into your work. Anyone see themselves as a visionary? Maybe we'll just get you to stamp, like, who are you in the world of a team? So Rita the Elf is a visionary. Secondary is the IEXP. So I'm going to go next to the orange, which is the world of the IEXP is, how do we sprint? How do we run? How do we innovate and experiment? And it's really key in teams that we have someone that's keeping an eye on shared team practices. How do we meet and share what we know and who we know? And some of you have heard me in past calls talk about one of the teams that I coached that actually helped me really frame out this. It was a team I worked with almost a decade ago now. And it was the first time I'd ever introduced the 6 factors of high performing teams. They actually had me come in. This was the team in the chemical industry that was sort of a customer service team. They needed to get their trucks out on the road, and it was causing a multi-million-dollar backlog across all of the Eastern Seaboard. And so, implications for teams can be not just small, but like multi-million dollars. And what was at the heart of it, as I shared the 6 factors with them, it wasn't about not having a clear mission or vision. It wasn't about not having agreements, but they did not have shared team practices and clear roles. So this team of customer service professionals were responsible for matching the trucks that came into the facility, getting it to the fill up, as that's a very layperson term. I'm sure there's a proper term for it, but getting the chemical in the truck and getting the truck back out on the road before it hit rush hour at the border, right? And there's a lot of multi-million-dollar, daily transactions that happen between the US and Canada. If a truck is not at the border in time, it's going to have a whole ripple effect across the seaboard. Well, what was interesting as we went through this model and I asked the team, where are you on a 1 to 10 around each of these areas? The one that kept flagged out was they didn't have any shared team practices. This team had been encouraged by a consultant to practice cross-functional role switching. In other words, they were really spending every week doing a different job because the consultant thought, oh, they need to be motivated, right? Like the issue here is motivation. So let's cross-train everyone so that every week someone's doing a different role. Well, what we found actually through the 6 factors was it was about roles, but it was about total chaos around roles. And this team had no idea who was doing what, when, where, why, or how. There was no chain of command. It was like, oh, let's be participatory. But you know what? When you're participatory and no one's calling the shots, those trucks are now out on the road by 3 p.m. So we, in the course of our work together, really helped, we collectively, me asking a few questions, they doing the work, really helped them identify that their bottleneck was around shared team practices and clear roles. And the very small shift that they made, and this is what I find fascinating about really great team coaching work, is often it's these micro shifts that have the ripple effect. And so the micro shift, twofold. Number one, they embrace the roles. Luckily, the foresight on the organization's lead was, Jen, can you do the everything disc with them? So I'd done the disc with them. We knew what their styles were. That's one part of the much bigger equation. They got into roles that they were well suited for: the visionary, the executor, the builder, the innovative experimenter. And so they started doing the same thing every week. And at the same time, they started meeting with each other. I asked them as I went to their site, and it was only a day that I got with them to kick off. And I said to them, where do you work? We're in this boardroom right now, but like, take me to where you work. I haven't sat in customer service, but I want to see where you sit. And they're like, oh, Jen, you don't need to see where we work. We work in this thing called the bullpen. I'm like, oh, now I really want to know where you work. And so they took me to the bullpen, which was literally like probably an 8x8, maybe a 7x7 set of, the walls, not the big walls that you would have in an office, but of course, the walls that move. And these customer service agents actually focused on the cubicle, and they had their backs to each other. In all the chaos of getting the trucks out on the road by 3 p.m., they did not have an opportunity to turn around and ask each other, how's it going? Because what they decided after me saying, well, shouldn't there be like a floater? Wouldn't it be useful to have someone on the team who actually knows all the rules? Because now you know all the rules, but someone who floats and can move from, role to role. They're like, oh, we could try that. Okay, hey, let's get you experimenting with it. And so that's what they did. And literally within a month, what do you think was happening? The trucks were on the road by 3 p.m. It wasn't rocket science, right? But it was a conversation. It was having that team really start to unpack and work through what was on the go. So with team coaching being all about helping teams create better results through enhanced relationships, what else do they need? They need a framework to start unpacking, like we would with the wheel of life, right? This is a different way to look at the wheel. It's the 6 factors of high-performing teams. So some of you have read this before. You've seen it and read it in Effective Virtual Conversations. I invite you to go back to that book. You would have seen parts of this actually in the chapter in From One to Many 10 years ago, because I was starting to talk about this a little bit. But in Reconnecting Workspaces, this takes part, front and center. It's in chapter 3 around teams. It's in chapter 4 around the tapestry of teams. It's in the chapters around results and relationships. So I hope that you'll enjoy the TED Talk when it comes out. You actually got a better part of the story than I was able to share with the world. But it is sort of the roots of why 6 factors are here. And just notice, Rita put in chat, she's a culture wizard. Role clarity and responsibilities can rectify wasting time with false expectations. Absolutely. So how are we in building teams, right? And that's part of, as you can imagine, with today's sort of focus, how are we helping as team coaches, teams intentionally build their own team structure? This is a little bit beyond just coaching, but there is, I believe, really a piece around performance improvement that masterful coaches need. We need to understand how organizations operate. We need to understand how do we help teams start to have a language, a shared language, whether it is the hybrid work styles like I would bring, or the everything disc, or the so many other assessments out there. What is a common language that we're helping them understand? Because they need everything, including the final piece of the shared commitment, or the now what. And just if you take a look at these and now look at the why, the what, the how, looking at the who, the when, and the now what, right? Those are your 5 W's and an H. And it's also embedded in the experiential process that Ivana took us through. What are you doing? Now, what are you going to do? And in part of that, there's the so what embedded in looking at how are we doing all of these other things. So I hope that sort of creates a bit of a final framing from some of the content that we wanted to look at today. The numbers really have no relevance. I usually actually always start with shared mission and vision, right? Rather than sharing with shared commitment. I go clockwise around the circle. And if you're interested in this, right? So we would ask that you please do attribute it to reconnecting workspaces and or effective virtual conversations. There will be more on this in 2023. So I'm going to pause here and just see how it connects. You know, coaching teams through chaos. This might not be your normal everyday experience, but it is the world of so many right now. What are you taking from this? What's the piece that you can carry forward? And we've got people like Allison. You do a lot of OD work. Marty, what's the connection point for you?
Well, I have a question. Where do I find it in effective virtual
conversations? Yeah, so you can find this in 6 factors. While I'm talking, we go to another one. You'll see it towards the back of the book. So go to the index and look at performing teams. I want to say it's chapter 11.
Performing teams. Okay.
But it's called the 6 factors, and you'll see it in EVC.
Excellent. Wonderful.
What you won't see, though, are the hybrid work styles. So the hybrid work styles are more recent. They came out of Reconnecting Workspaces, and they're going to be pretty embedded in the new 2023 new book that I'm working on for team coaches. So the new book, just to give you a little like heads up, that's going to be a book touching on a lot of what we've touched on today. So there's going to be like the theme of the superpowers. There's going to be the theme of the hybrid work styles, but it's going to be a practitioner's guide, right? How do you do team coaching? We spent a lot of time as an industry in the last few years coming up with great models, but how do you do the work? And how do you have these results? You're setting the team up for success, right? It's not contingent on us, but it's us supporting the space for the team to have the conversations to get the results that they need. So one more layer of complexity. So other comments, questions? Stephanie's flipping through. I don't know, which one do you have there, Stephanie? Okay, you've got EVC as well. Excellent. Marty, there we go. Rita the Elf, page 349. Yeah. Ooh, look at that. Rita is always on it. Marty.
So, oh, good. 349. Perfect. Wonderful. So you asked how do we see using this?
Yeah.
I actually don't do team coaching now, and I don't even do group coaching. But I have 2 individuals that one individual in particular that I'm coaching, who this idea of working with a team, and these ideas will really help her.
Yeah.
So
again, and I so appreciate that you're saying that, Marty, because a lot of one-on-one coaches will say, oh, that doesn't have resonance. But if you're coaching leaders, this is their world, right? So how do we become better at really helping our clients, i.e. the leader, unpack these areas, right? And so you may not be coaching the team, but in effect, you're coaching the leader of the team, who is really like in many ways the hub, especially in a traditional model. So I'm glad you've made that connection. Allison, what are you connecting to?
Yeah, thanks for the question. It just prompted something in me when I was working with the last team on that piece that you said, shared behavior and norms. Mm-hmm. There's an important component of vision and mission at that level. So I'm talking now about mid-level leadership. Okay, so top down, you're getting the mission and the vision potentially assigned, right? But then what do you do with it? How do we work together? How do we make this happen? There needs to be a buy-in on how together as a team we're going to achieve that. And so it's more than just, agreeing on norms. It's really in what is our unique team's vision at that level to carry this through. And I appreciate you asking that question. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Well, again, what do we do as coaches? We ask questions, which for some, it's interesting. My first version of the TED Talk was going to be including questions for each of the stages. And then some of the people who were listening to it was like, that's so confusing. And I said, well, you know what? You're not a leader. Like, I think leaders want to hear the questions. So in the final version, right? Like any TED Talk, it's not you speak it once, you speak it and you speak it and you speak it. It has some questions, but I think for team leaders, they're going to be like, oh, I want more questions, because I know when, again, my world as a team leader, it was very much about how do I help my team, which was in some instances like spread across 10 countries and spread across cultures of the world and different technical areas of expertise. How did we find questions and conversations that meant something to everyone? Right? That is the world of the team leader. How do you find the common hub for your entire team to help the team now create alignment and move forward? Yeah. Ivana, you're leaning in. What are you thinking about? And again, we've got you on mute.
Creating that sense of belonging.
Yeah, wow. I'm just gonna not go on mute. How's that? Because anytime I
Yeah, you
talk,
don't have to go
I
on
don't
mute
want
in
to
my
talk,
room,
and
right?
then I go on mute, and then I want to talk. So anyhow, no, I really appreciated what Allison was saying around the top down versus the mid level. And my thoughts, and I put it in chat, was really like, it's one thing to have this high level vision and mission, but at a mid level, like, what are those behaviors?
Yeah.
What are the behaviors that align with the vision? What are the behaviors that align with the mission? Because that way, as middle management, or regardless, even with non-management, we can go, oh, that's how my work, my job affects the big picture. And I think there's an opportunity there for different departments. And I'm going to say, this is something that we continue to work with even in our new team, is really how do we fulfill and move forward with our vision of being a one-stop shop for group and team coaches, and that's through our behaviors. That's through where I invest my time and how that actually relates to that vision and mission. Yeah, belonging and vision buy-in absolutely motivates the behaviors. Absolutely.
And if we can make the link too, right? So we've been talking a lot like team leaders, or you're now coaching the team, but look at what's happening in the workforce, right? This is the full circle with reconnecting workspaces. We now have in many countries, not every country, but it's really happening here in Canada. We have had so many people leave, the elder leaders leave the workforce. So we now have this huge need for new professionals to come in. Some people are entering the workforce for the first time, and they've been blocked out for years, and they're now stepping in, and it's like, how do I lead in this space, because I've never seen it done. And so you might be a group coach working with those new leaders, also wanting to think about, how do I activate this? And this is where Reconnecting Workspaces Certified Coach comes in, because coaches can use this model, take it out, and really be embracing it. And I think that's where we're also seeing investment from a coaching profession, right, across industries, even in economic times, that there's a lot of investment that's happening now with the young leaders. And if it's not one-on-one, it may be in the group context, like, hey, we've got to upskill, or we've got to support all of these young leaders. And so it's not the executive team, right? That's never been the level I've worked at. It's always been at the mid-level manager, might be seasoned or very new to the work, but that creates an opportunity as well. So just want to put that out, right? Like, you might have been listening and going, oh, but I don't do team coaching. But you know what? This is a cross-sectoral. You could be having a one-on-one conversation like Marty. You could be like me. Hey, Jen, can you come in and work with 20 of our leaders? Yeah, let's do it. And let's help the leaders understand what they need to be doing to create the conditions for team effectiveness. And what else do they require in terms of understanding how to put their team together. So it's wider than just coaching, but it all comes, right? It's all integrated all together. So Other questions, comments? It's already 20 after 12. I can't believe where this party day is going. So when the TED Talk comes out, we'll share it. I'll share it, and I hope you will enjoy it. Again, invite your leaders to take the work styles. We had some people here earlier who had taken work styles. So to me, that's like, oh, that's good that they came to the party and they weren't coaches. So that says something to me as well. Any other comments before I switch gears? Yeah, Sonia, thank you. It was great to see you here. Couple things that I want to really look at in our last sort of half an hour. I'm not going to get into Kathy's, she had a bunch of myths and principles, but so we'll probably do that as part of our new year. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the new accreditation as well as coaching supervision. So just want to get a sense of where energy is, because I could talk for the rest of the call on either one of those. Interested or curious about coaching supervision. You might have been hearing a little bit more about coaching supervision. Allison?
I'm interested in both, hearing about both the team certification and also the supervision. Mentor coaching is so needed, supervision.
Supervision is so needed. And how about you, Stephanie? What are you interested in right now? What's important?
I'd like to hear more about the coaching supervision.
Okay, perfect. So coaching supervision might have been something you've heard about before or not. I think that's sort of it's early days of this becoming a requirement. And yes, Danette says both, since supervision is required for the new ACTC credential. So I'll put my hat actually on as a trained coaching supervisor. So I went back to school earlier this year to do a diploma in coaching supervision. You might say, but Jen, you have a master's degree, you have this, you have that. But I felt that with the advent of supervision, I was like, I know it's different than mentor coaching. I've mentor coached for 15 years, but what is supervision? And as I unearthed what is really a well-established practice in the UK, it is very much a different experience than most of you will have had the privilege of taking part in. So supervision is really a space for reflective pause on the part of the coach practitioner. And you, as part of the ACTC, so the new advanced credential, will have a requirement to work with a trained, certified coach supervisor, right? You want to make sure that it's not just anyone saying, oh yeah, I'm a supervisor. Like you need someone like who is either, in training right now, because there's a shortage of coach supervisors as well. This is something interesting to note. But it is someone who is going to work and walk beside you as a coach, right? As a coach supervisor, I partner with my clients like I would at any time, but it's really about you bringing your work to the conversation. And so you might bring a specific case study like, oh, I'm working with a new group and this group is struggling. I want to spend the time unpacking it, unlayering it. So very much in the language of what we've been doing. Maybe it's a one-on-one relationship. And it's like, I'm noticing some interesting patterns with my one-on-one clients. They're all getting stuck, or they're all feeling resistant to change. As we step back and look at our practice, whether it's one-on-one, group, or team, we can very much sort of like see patterns. So the conversations with the supervisor can be sort of case by case specific. It may be looking at patterns. It might also be just creating a pause for you as a practitioner. There can be a developmental edge to this. So for example, when I went and hired my first team, so I have a team coaching supervisor, I hired her because this piece of work was getting so complex. And I really needed someone who was a team coach to help me understand and unpack what were all the layers happening. They bring a background in systems and complexity. So it's been really fruitful. Like it's been more than a year plus conversation about one team system. And so I couldn't do that myself, right? Like I need the thinking partner there with me. So part of the advanced credential for team coaching, the ACTC, will be a requirement of a minimum of 5 hours or 10 hours. It's going to depend. Danette has looked into this. So the current credentialing, in a way it's standing. I'm just going to bring up a slide from ICF. So excuse me while I sort of go back through slides. You know what? I'm going to do it this way. I won't flash through all the slides we didn't touch because that'll create chaos, but I do have from ICF the requirements here. So here we go. Let me share this. Okay, so this is the new ACTC, the Advanced Certification from Team Coaching. This is from ICF. So they will start opening up in early 2023, the new application. You will need to hold an active ICF credential. Could be ACC, PCC, MCC. This credential is going to sit on top of it. It is not going to change your baseline, but it's going to say, I am now specialized, or I bring a specialization and advanced skills in team coaching. So to demonstrate that, you also will have had to complete 60 hours of team coaching education, 60 hours. So anyone who's been with us for group coaching essentials, team coaching essentials, practicum, that is 32.75 hours right there if you took those 3 courses. Some of you may have taken virtual facilitation essentials, and I think you can easily make a business case if you work with hybrid teams, virtual teams, remote teams, that's an essential skill set as well. What we've done is mapped out, and I'll show you in a minute, we've mapped out sort of different pathways for different people because you're all coming at it from a different way. But the core first 3 courses are group coaching essentials, team coaching essentials, and advanced practicum. And you might say, but why group coaching essentials? And that's because we really have found this year, especially, we've been tracking, we see that, group coaching is complex, but team coaching is even more complex. So in our learning journey as coaches, it makes a lot of sense to go one-on-one to group and then to team. And there's things that you learn in group coaching essentials, like how groups and teams form, the forming, storming, norming, all of the work around design, understanding how adults learn. These are foundations that it's very hard to jump directly to team coaching essentials. We've seen some people do it and they've missed all of them. And there's quite a handful. They have all missed this centerpiece of what you learn in group coaching essentials. So we're pretty confident in saying, the pathway to mastery really is about this. And again, I've been specializing in this for like 18 years now, right? Like group coaching essentials running every month since January of 2006. It takes years of work in seeing coaches graduate and also get into the workforce of team coaching to really see what is needed. So don't short circuit. If you have not yet taken one of these, it's the invitation to do it. We are also adding in our 60 hours, we've gone a bit beyond and calling it 70 hours. But this is where activating your team and group coaching superpowers comes in, right? That's course 4 on the pathway. So right after practicum, we're recommending activate your superpowers. And it's 14 CCEs now. So it's 11 core competencies for resource development. Course 5 is coaching diverse teams using the work styles. So again, we take our focus off us and we put our focus onto the teams that we're working with. And that also has been approved by ICF as 14 CCEs. And the final of the 6 courses that will take you up and above the 60 hours is co-coaching, because current best practice, this has been best practice for a long time, but recommendation is with larger teams like 5, 6, 7 plus, you need to have a co-coach. Right? Even larger systems, ICF is now saying anything above 15, if you want to consider it as team coaching or group coaching, it needs to have a co-coach. And for those of you that have been with us in practicum, you know that we touch on that, but it's not something you want to do. This is where understanding your styles, understanding the groups and what you can activate becomes critical. So that's our 60-hour, 70-hour pathway. You can have, of course, maybe some of you have done team assessments. You could be putting in a business case for that, but just know that it's a very robust application, right? It's not like PCC, having gone through the pilot, you've got to not only demonstrate how these connect to the ICF competencies for team coaching, but you've also got to document team coaching engagements. So in the pilot, it was actually 10 engagements within the last 5 years. They've reduced it to 5, but even that is sizable, right? It's very sizable. So some things to think about as you're going forward with your work. Number one, from a practitioner's lens while maintaining confidentiality, really think about how team coaching is playing out, like who's involved, what initiated this work, what were the tools you used, and also be asking for a letter of reference. So ICF in the pilot, and this may change a little bit in the new full-blown application, but I don't think it will, but we had to provide letters from our sponsors or team leads talking about the value the coach brought to the team process and what value there was in team coaching. So that to me was a really actually very amazing experience. I was sort of like, oh, do I have to reach back to these people I worked with in 2017? Like, I was like, really? But I was like, yeah, I do need to. So I reached out to one team lead in particular, and she was amazing. She was like, oh my gosh, Jennifer, I've wanted to reach out to you for so long. And like the stuff that you did with us in 2017 really helped us get through the pandemic, right? And it was just like, wow, like we don't often have an opportunity to reach back like maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months, but like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So you can really start seeing the impact of your work and what you do, because that's what team coaching is about. It's about activating the team. It's about, we need to fade out, right? Whether we fade out after 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or even 5 days of embedded work. Because I also had a team that I'd been embedded with. And when I say embedded, I used to, and I hope this will come back soon online, I used to work as a shadow coach, a shadow team coach, where I would be with teams in very high level, I can sort of say with maintaining confidentiality, high level meetings, let's call it that. And I stay in the shadows. So I watch the team. I watch the team as they do their work. We step aside and we have conversations around what's happening with their results and relationships and their practices, all the stuff that we just looked at. But as you can imagine, I've always questioned, what value does that team get? And so again, having to reach out with these engagements really makes a difference. So you will need to have team coaching engagements as well as 5 hours of coaching supervision. For those interested, we're launching a team supervision, a coaching supervision group for team coaches especially. And that will start on Thursday, January 12th at 12 noon. I'll be facilitating that, hopefully with Kathy's support, but I'll be leading that. And it's going to be a group that meets January 12th, February 2nd, March 2nd, April 4th, and a final call the first week of May. What is different about coaching supervision groups than mentor coaching? So I want to make this distinction. Mentor coaching, we're looking at skill development. Coaching supervision, we're asking each group member to bring a topic they want to explore as it relates to their teams, groups, individuals that they're coaching. So you're bringing a case. Really, that's the language. It might sound a little, British to you because, well, that's the language, the British have sort of put around it. So we may have different language, but it's really bringing a case. It's bringing, your experience, your lived experience with your clients. And part of our work is unlayering it, very much unlayering it. So if you're interested in coaching supervision, there is space. We have 4 remaining spaces, probably 3 actually after today, 3 remaining spaces for the January 2023 group. If you are interested, please reach out to me directly, Jennifer@potentialsrealized.com, or you can also head on over to groupcoachingessentials.ca/coaching supervision. There's no hyphen, there's nothing, it's just coaching supervision after the groupcoachingessentials.ca. You'll see it also on the left-hand navigation bar. And why I say, do it earlier rather than later, because if you want to put in for your credential, you're going to require supervision. You need to have those 5 hours under your belt. You could hire someone like me or other credentialed supervisors who specialize in team or group coaching or one-on-one. Again, think about what your landscape is. But the difference with supervision is it's not something we're going to do every week, right? It's something we do and we connect around every month is ideal. There may be some instances where you're meeting bi-weekly, but because you're really reflecting on your practice, it's not a weekly conversation. It really is a monthly. but I can see that some of you will want to get your materials in sooner than later. So if that is you, book a call with me. You know, you have the Jen Britton Calendly link, or you can come in through the doorway of the Superpowers quiz. You'll see a Calendly link for that. And then finally, there is it's a specific ICF team coaching certification exam. Again, I've written a pilot, and while maintaining that ethical practice, it really tests you on your knowledge base of teams and team coaching specifically. So it is an advanced credential, right? This is not something that everyone will go for. And this is why we've spent a lot of time this year thinking about how we can support you. So again, you've got my writing, you've probably done team coaching training. Here's a QR code that you can scan. As I said, we've got the coaching supervision group. And then if you've done the trifecta, which is 32.75 hours, you'll want to go maybe and add on the rest of the series, which we're calling the triad. Activate, coaching diverse teams, and then co-coaching essentials. And until the end of the year, I'm doing a special rate for that triad. Normally those courses are like $9.97 each, but we're taking off a couple $100 and giving an installment plan. If you'd like to pay over 3 months or even 6 months in taking the course, we can do that as well. So we're really here to support you. Again, some of you may already have done training, but are just needing like supervision. Please reach out. I'd love to work with you again as a coach supervisor. And if it's not me, maybe there are some of my other colleagues, because there really aren't many of us in the world, right? It is Kathy has done advanced training in team coaching supervision, which is why she does what she does with us. I went through a training with about 16 other practitioners this summer. We worked with Peter Hawkins directly for 3 days. And, you know, there's just really a real need. So with that, please reach out, and let me pause here. Any questions on this? Stephanie? Yeah, go ahead.
So I guess it's just for my own clarity. After, and I think it's a requirement of the ACC, where your supervision is recorded sessions and your supervisor is listening to your actual coaching and then giving you feedback on what actually took place on the call. Now, I realize with a team and a corporate environment, you're not going to necessarily be able to record it. So I guess that's why they went in this direction. It just seems so very different than how the supervision was structured for the ACC.
Yeah. So again, how mentor coaching was structured, right? So mentor coaching is going to continue to be there, right? It is about skill development. What supervision is creating the pause so you can reflect on what's really happening. So in team coaching, especially, there may be collusion that's happening, right? There may be relationship issues that are happening. There may be conflict that is happening. And so it's not about your skills per se. It's about stepping back and being able to say, what is really happening in this team system? What is going on? And what does this team need? And that will part then, as you figure it out, may transition into a conversation saying, ooh, you know what, there's a lot of conflict here. What can I be pulling on to work with this team around conflict? Because conflict is part of the team coaching competency base. So that's where supervision does also allow us to get into the developmental space of discussion around your skills and your competencies. Mm-hmm. And then finally, there's a third layer. So it's not only on reflection, skill, but also continued development. What do I need as a coach to continue to be not only fit to serve, but really to be on that edge of learning, which is what we've been doing here today, right? Have I thought about my superpowers? Have I thought about my range? Have I thought about who I should really be partnering with in the medium and long term, not just today? So Stephanie, is that useful in making, again, some discernment around what you've gone through as a mentor coach, right? Which was really that, let's listen to your recording. Let's make sure that you're asking powerful questions. Mentor coaching is about, are you getting the coaching arc right? There may be a little bit of that if a supervisor is concerned that the coach is maybe not coaching anymore and that the person is actually consulting instead of coaching. But that's not the primary of supervisor.
Yeah, and I guess it's terminology, right? Because I went through the CTI program And they called
Yes.
those sessions
Yeah.
supervision.
Yes.
So, but what you're saying is they weren't truly supervision, they were
So they were
mentoring.
supervision in a different language, right? And I was CTI trained as well, right? Which for
Okay.
me, and Ivana is as well, right? So for me, it was like, I think in the last 20 years, since I went through certification, working with my certification supervisor, I always felt that there was more around skill development. And that's just a
Yes.
very light part of what we're now terming coaching supervision for
Okay.
team coaching, if I want to make that distinction, which hopefully sort of also reframes it as even more specific.
Okay. Yeah, it helps because I watched one of those videos
Yeah.
that's posted on your website on coaching supervision, and I was like, what? This is
This is
so different than
different.
what
Yeah.
my brain was expecting. So it's very helpful. Yeah. So
And
it's-
I'm glad that you're calling it out, right? I think early days, it's been, even as a coaching supervisor in training, there's been cognitive dissonance too. Also with our work, because for 20 years, I've talked about the importance of a pause, right? That's what a group coach needs to do. But the pause as a group coach practitioner is slightly different than the pause as a coaching supervisor. So again, I too, in my learning journey, after all these years, are also finding different ways, nuances, frames. But the good news is we're in the same neighborhood, right? We're in the neighborhood, like the Venn diagram. There's a lot of overlap and overlay. But I really, I think for many of you, especially if you've been with us as an alumni for years, like I think this is hopefully something that you can next aspire to. It is, I believe, going to be a definer in a field where everyone right now is saying, oh yeah, I'm a team coach. Team coach certification is not just a mental model around team coaching. It is a practitioner's model. So this is really a badge to say, you know what? I've done advanced training, and I, more importantly, have done team coaching engagements with live teams, with real teams. I know it, I'm learning it, I'm continuing to grow. And that, if anything, right, this is what our clients want. They want to know, like, what kind of teams have you worked with before? This is often a question I get. Like, Jennifer, we're contacting you and like, tell me a little bit about the types of teams that have activated team coaching before. How is this different than a team building event? And so the more we can build our practice base, the more we can serve. And I hope, again, this is just an inspirational opportunity for you. Any other questions, comments? I know it's not for everyone. Ivana, over to you.
I'm going to bring Danette's comment. Rita did share the upcoming dates in the chat, but maybe you can just address the fact that there was 2022 dates on the website.
Ooh, so that should be, that's my typo. That is not a 2022, because we have not offered certification. We have not offered supervision. And is that what Rita's referring to? Yeah. So the next cohort dates are January, February, March, April, May, and that should read 2023, not 2022. Yeah.
I will
thank
go
you.
back. Thanks, Danette, for pointing that out, and we'll go back and fix that typo.
Yeah.
I literally just hit copy and paste, so thank you for pointing that out.
All right. Anything else? Any other questions?
I think more a comment, if I can speak as the lay person, because my focus is not team coaching. I think it's really connecting the dots between our program and the ICF certification. Like, we are a provider or an option as a provider to support you meeting your requirements, both from a supervision standpoint and also from a curriculum standpoint. And I think what's brilliant is that many of our participants have taken the reins with the earlier part, so they're already on that journey map. Mm-hmm. And knowing that the team coaching competencies speak to co-coaching, and knowing that, you know, the intellectual property that we really have a strong base on around the team effectiveness, I think these are really great programs to support that journey map. Because I know I was confused for a while. I'm being fully transparent. I'm like, we're offering a certification. No, we are offering the education requirement and team supervision requirement to meet your ICF requirements if you're choosing to do the specialized credentialing.
So we are offering a certificate to say, yes, you've completed either 70.75 hours, which is the dark blue, those first 6 courses. Some of you will go on, some of you have gone on, right? Some of you on today's call listening live or virtually have done virtual facilitation essentials. You've done reconnecting workspaces, which is another 24 CCEs. Some of you will want to join us for Coaching Business Builder. So again, coaching business design is critical, right? We're coming into another economic period where it's not great. But I am very confident that, you know, what we're continuing to offer is going to help coaches thrive in this. For years, there have been colleagues that have challenged me saying, oh, Jen, you've got a niche, you've got to do this, the age old, like, you know, you've got to do one thing. This business and my body of work would not be what it is if I had listened to people who said, you can't do groups, you can't do teams. This is literally the lack of openness that has and still exists within our profession. And so, you know, diverse business lines are essential. And that's what we're going to continue to support coaches in developing a customized business to meet your needs, your strengths, and the clients that you are there to serve. And so that's really, really, really reactivating some of the Coaching Business Builder. So we'll have a 14-week business development program for people who don't want to join me for the whole year in the Coaching Biz Growth Lab. So some of you are really looking at 2023 is my year to double down on my business because I need to create a sustainable livelihood. And so CGBL, as I call it, Coaching Biz Growth Lab, is continuing in for our 5th year. It's our 5th year in 2023. And it's growing. Every year it's growing, which is really exciting to me. And it's for people who want to build a sustainable business model that is not like I got to kill myself and work 20 hours a day, every day for 6 weeks and then stop. It's about developing those daily steps plus consistent action, creating the momentum. And if you've read CBB or Plan, Do, Track, that's the IP, that's the intellectual property, that's the tagline. So yeah, Ivana.
And a question, because I'm curious, and so if I'm curious, others might be curious. So I know we've got a beautiful alumni community who have taken reconnecting workspaces or maybe something else in the lighter blue. Can people pick and choose as long as they get to 70 to hit their 70, or is that a required path?
Yeah. So again, why I've sequenced it this way is because I think if you're really just going in to work with a team, the core foundations are you're going to need to know, of course, the essentials and have some initial practice, but you're going to need to know who you are, right? That's a superpower. You're definitely going to want to think about who's on the team. And then finally, what about co-coaching? So some of you are like, but wait, yeah, I took reconnecting workspaces already, or I'm really intrigued because I work with hybrid. Add it on, right? You can start with reconnecting workspaces. It's just the first 6 I see is really essential for practice, not even just the numbers, but essential for practice. But you might say, and we've started hearing this, hey, listen, I like that idea of course number 10, team coaching approaches, experiential exercises, learning and neuroscience. So that I've put as a final cumulative, almost capstone program that will stand alone because it's bringing together many of the themes we've touched on today. So the experiential piece, the learning piece, the neuroscience, and whether you are going to go on and do team coaching or not, it's going to give you a toolbox. That's really the toolbox course. So thank you for asking. You can take one, you can take some. What we have found, though, I would say is the essential to start with really is group coaching essentials. We've seen people jump in at other stages. For years, I saw people jump in at, say, virtual facilitation essentials, especially in the pandemic. And what they missed and what they often came back to was group coaching essentials, because they didn't have the design piece. They didn't have the understanding of how groups form. So
That was my experience, Jen, because I joined the alumni with VFE, and I'm like, okay, this is great, and
there's more. What else? What else is there? And then
yeah, so I ended up doing the backwards, VFE back to group coaching essentials, and then practicum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you'll notice the roundabout, which is not that common, but very common in Canada. So Rita was our roundabout lady, because we've been hearing, one of the things I've been really tracking is what is the right pathway, right? It's taken years to come to this pathway, but should people start with team coaching essentials or group? And as I've shared, you can start with either, but our more recent experience in the last 6 months has been people find it a more comfortable sequence learning journey when they start with group coaching essentials and then go to team coaching essentials for a lot of the reasons I've shared. So again, my hope is, regardless of if you do your training through us or you do one course or whatever, like, learn. The world needs more team coaches. The teams need team coaches. There is so much happening. And there's a lot of people who are saying that they are coaches and working with teams that are just not either. So with that, please join us. And if you want to set up a call, as you've seen the different QR codes, we've had QR codes throughout the day, just simply reach out, right? We're all going to be around this week up until the 23rd of December. I will check email throughout the holidays on working days, but I will be off, like Ivana and Rita and Kathy, until the 9th of January when our programs start. So we will kick off Team Coaching Essentials on January 9th, that Monday. I'll be doing a mentor coaching group. We've talked a little bit about supervision, which will start on the Thursday. And then the Friday, of course, is, we know for coaches, such a popular day. We've got 4 new programs starting at 9 a.m. with mentor coaching. 10:15, Ivana will be leading next group coaching essentials. 10:15, I'll be leading Activate Your Group and Team Coaching Superpowers. At 12:30, I then step into the next advanced practicum with our next crew. So lots on the go. And this was not meant to overwhelm going, oh, it was really meant to inspire. So I want to leave us with one final exercise. We are 8 minutes before the end of the party. So just a reminder to head on over and grab your swag bag. I think this is not the swag bag. That is our Biz Growth. I'm going to put this up because I want you to book a call. So there's a time to talk if you want to scan the QR code and I get us out of the way.
I also put your link, that same link in chat, Jen.
Thank you, Ivana. I want to leave us with the next steps, right? Part of the coaching arc is not only thinking about where we have started, but also where we are going. And so I've got one final experiential exercise to take us through. We're going to do this in a couple of minutes. And I'd like you, if you've been with us for 1 hour or the whole time, I'd like to invite you to please share with us. No, not share with us. Share with yourself these 5 questions. We're going to do them one at a time in that reflective prompt. Once again, start my timer. We're going to start with the question of what were some new ideas, or what was a reinforcement of the ideas that you can be using in your work as a coach. Take stock for about 45 seconds of any ideas that you have come up against today within this party. All right, next we're going to move into habits. So one of the sort of sub themes that's come up today is the importance of these regular steps, regular actions, habits, perhaps. I'd like you to think about your work as a coach and your work as a human being, or your being as a human being. What are the habits that are going to support you to do your best work in 2023? All right, our next one, which is, what is an action step you want to commit to doing? Could be one, it could be more, but just remember, streamline it. What's the one thing you want to do? Next one, supports. What are the supports that you need to make this happen? And finally, what are your growth steps? What is going to keep you growing in your space, in your client's world? What is your stretch? So I hope that you've had as much fun and got some insights. As we go into our final minute together, just remember that all change is about activating those daily steps and consistent action to create momentum. I think in 2023, there is so much possible. We look forward to supporting you. I hope that you've gotten a bit of a roadmap and some clarity. There's just one more slide that I wanted to leave us with, which is this one here. Just like these images, and you probably can't see them. I looked a little more closely, but there's a whole slew of images here of great places around the world. I'm so proud of our team, right? We're a global team. And I'm so appreciative to you, Ivana, and to you, Rita, for spending time and all that you brought to our alumni. So appreciative, Kathy, who obviously something has come up. You know, that's part of having a global team. Kathy has made such an impact on our work in team coaching over the last year. And we look forward to continuing to serve you. No doubt there's going to be continued growth and learning and insights and change. And we are just pleased to be here to support you. So thank you for taking time, whether you were here live, for the full-time, part-time, some of you were. I just want to stop our share and just see, what are you leaving with? Stephanie, Marty, Danette, Rita, Ivana, Janine, what are you leaving with? Marty, you're unmuted, so let's go to you first.
Yep. While you were talking, I drew a picture. I did what we did, that I drew a picture of from my current reality to what I call it, my intended reality.
Nice.
So I've got it right up there to see. It's
I
pretty
love
great.
that. I love that, Marty. And I appreciate, if you haven't done the draw, your future, go back to last year, right? Maybe this is something I'm going to activate in January, but you've got yours visually. Rita is leaving with renewed inspiration. It's a bit loud, so she's muted. The puppy is awake and active. Enjoy. And I'm so glad you brought your hat today, Rita. Certainly, Colin, our guy, was happy. Danette, I'm on my way. I saw I'm on my way, but there's room for growth, a room to impact the business. Yeah. The business growth, and I do want to mention, I didn't mention this, but Coaching Biz Growth Lab, there's a special on Coaching Biz Growth Lab for about $200 a month. Or if you want to pay monthly, $250 a month, you can join us at the CGBL. We meet Fridays bi-weekly. It's 11:35 to 12:20. It's a really specific time. And we also do monthly events. So get it done days, monthly reflection prompts. And it's really just we can't do it alone. We can do it alone for a long time, as I have. But when you can really find a group and or a coach to work with, it just speeds it up. And I see that in my own business right now with my coach who is in Australia. So with that, Stephanie, what are you leaving our call with?
So I am also leaving with inspiration. I am new in my business, right? I just went full-time a couple of months ago. And I am struggling a little bit with having continued motivation. So this is a spark, and hopefully I get some fire going. So.
Well, thank you for coming, and we'll see you in the new year as well. So that could be some more spark. Ivana, what are you leaving our call with today?
I always love the quick reflections you create. I always get so much value out of them. So this last one was like, wow, I saw so many possibilities. And so my takeaway is really to reflect on this and pick my path on this in terms of what is that. It's great. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure. And it was really wonderful to see it play forward with you today and how you took us through the what, so what, now what. So our work creates ripples on lots of levels. Thank you for spending time. A big happy holiday to all of you, whatever you celebrate. And we'll see you in 2023. Be well, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.